Okay, I'm calling back to order the meeting of the Sacramento City Unified School District with the Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance will be performed by our superintendent, or led by our superintendent, Superintendent Aguilar.
Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Thank you, Superintendent. Student member Shake, broadcast statement.
Yes, Madam President, apologies. This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being recorded in its entirety and will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast, Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse. Today's meeting will air Sunday, April 11th at 6 p.m. and Monday, April 12th at noon. It is also webcast at metro14live.saccounty.net and can be viewed on Metro Cable 14's YouTube channel. The public has been given the opportunity to address the board through public comment, either by submitting comments, which are posted on our website, or by speaking during the meeting. Members of the public who wish to speak during the meeting submitted a speaker form by noon today and were sent a link to participate. When it is your turn to provide comment, we will call on you to provide comment orally. Your video will not be on. Please always limit comments during public comment to items that are not on the agenda. If you do comment on an item that is on the agenda, we will ask that you please defer your comments until your item comes up on the agenda.
Thank you, student member Shake. And just for clarification, do we need to have our cameras on our laptop? We don't. Okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. Okay, item 4.3, stellar student. Our first stellar student is Giovanni Rosales, a 7th grader student from Wilsey Wood. And I'll have member Villa take one.
Hello, everyone. So Giovanni is a 7th grader from Wilsey Wood. His family's here, correct? Mom was just on the screen. So Giovanni is an outstanding student. From the very start of the in-person learning hubs, he was committed to daily attendance and improving his academic performance. Despite uncertainty of what it looked like to return to campus, he held himself responsible, walking to and from school every day. He has always come prepared to tackle new assignments as well as catch up on what he lost over distance learning. His upbeat attitude and optimism is key to success, and we can all learn from it. So, thank you again for being our stellar student.
Fantastic. Giovanni and Mom, are you online with us? Oh, I think you're on mute. Still on mute. Sorry, there you go.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Would you like to say anything?
No. I just listen to you.
Great. Well, congratulations to Giovanni. Thank you so much for joining us. Is Giovanni with you?
No, she's not here. I'm in the
It looks like you're doing mom duties. Mom duties. That's what it looks like to me.
I'm in the laundry.
Well, please to send him our congratulations. We're very proud of him.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Perfect. And our second stellar student is Christopher Flores, a 5th grader student at Ethel I. Baker Elementary School. Member Phillips?
Hi there. We have a student named Christopher Flores from Ethel I. Baker Elementary School. Christopher is in the 5th grade. Hi, Christopher. Christopher Flores is a hardworking student that is kind to his sibling and fellow students. He's always seeking new challenges and ways to create jobs. He enjoys making people laugh and smile. Christopher is a student who is polite and always on task while working. And Christopher is always willing to help others when they're in need. Thank you, Christopher, for being our stellar student.
Congratulations, Christopher. Would you like to say anything? Oh, I think you're on mute, though.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this award.
You are adorable. Well, congratulations, Christopher. Keep up the hard work, all right? Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay. Item 5.0, announcement of action taken in closed session.
Good evening, President Pritchett. There is one announcement coming out of closed session. The board approved a special education settlement agreement identified as OAH case number 2020090031 by a unanimous vote of those members present, 6-0. That is
Okay.
all.
Thank you. Item 6.0, agenda adoption. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you. Second? Okay. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right. Adopted our agenda. Item 7.0, special presentation. 7.1, resolution number 3193, resolution condemning anti-Asian hatred and violence and supporting people of Asian ancestry. This will be presented by Member Wu and Member Phillip.
Okay? Whereas basic human decency requires a respect and acceptance for people of all backgrounds, and the motto of the United States is E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. Whereas America's professed values include a commitment to liberty, equality, and justice for all, values the country has often failed to reach but never stopped striving to attain. Whereas California is home to 5.9 million Asian American and Pacific Islanders, a diverse group that has enriched the state in countless and invaluable ways. Whereas as the COVID-19 virus has spread, AAPI groups have reported experiencing microaggressions, being targeted, scapegoated, and resulting in hate incidents and violence, even being killed because of their race. Whereas people of Asian descent have suffered intense discrimination since California's earliest days, including but not limited to inhuman policies and treatment toward Chinese immigrants in the Gold Rush era, the Chinese Exclusion Act, the persecution of Filipino American workers, the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, the rise in violence against Asian Muslims and Sikhs after the September 11th terrorist attacks, and how we must acknowledge, learn, and teach this history to not repeat it. Whereas in many school districts, AAPI students are expressing fear of violence and harassment when returning to in-person instruction. Whereas schools must help dispel the model minority myth, a stereotype that the AAPI community is a monolithic group that erases the economic, academic, and social struggles of diverse communities, can add to the burden and social and emotional toll that AAPI students can bear. Now, before I read the resolve, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague.
Did you want to say anything about the resolution?
Okay, then now therefore be it resolved that the governing board of the Sacramento City Unified School District condemns hatred, xenophobia, and harassment and violence towards the people of Asian ancestry, and commits to creating a supportive, inclusive culture that fully embraces students and staff of Asian descent, adopted this 8th of April, 2021. Thank you.
We
Oh,
do.
sorry. Public comment on this item. I did not have my microphone on.
We do. We have one public comment from Terrence Gladney.
Welcome, Mr. Gladney.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi. Just FYI as well on the Zoom, I can't see you guys' video. Um, but I know you guys will fix it now that I've let you know. I applaud the board for bringing this resolution forward, but as with the previous resolutions on Black History and Women's History Months, I challenge you all as a board and staff as well to establish sustainable initiatives that reflect the language that's presented in this resolution. Um, and instead of just sort of leaving that open-ended, I have a few recommended actions that I believe are really attainable. We could utilize our dormant transportation department to provide local field trips to the nearby Delta towns of Locke and Walnut Grove, which are right along the Sacramento River. Or we could even use them to transport students a little bit further to San Francisco's Chinatown or Japantown so they can have a real life example of Asian and Islander excellence. We could possibly establish a naming committee to align the names of William Land Elementary and or Elder Creek to their respective Mandarin/Chinese immersion programs. We could even establish possibly pen pal or sister school programs between our schools here and Asian Pacific Island schools that are abroad, just to, again, just reinforce it. I think that the ultimate goal has to be that we live what we believe in, whether it's reflected in our budget or our daily activities, to where these resolutions aren't ceremonial in nature, but they're really just a footnote to what we're already doing every day and really showing students what we truly believe in. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Gladney. That is our only live comment. With that, do we have any board discussion on this item? You want to move it? Is that what, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Member Morosky.
Yes, I would happily move the resolution, fully in support. Um, I just want to say that America is not America without the contributions of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. We will never live up to our promise as a country or as a community until we all accept that we all belong and stand in solidarity. Hate, bias, and discrimination against Asian Americans makes us all weaker, less human, and we must condemn it. I am convinced making racism and bias history is the project of our time. This is our charge as a board, and although this is just a resolution, I also look forward to supporting additional ideas to make that a reality. And with that, I would move the resolution.
A second.
Thank you. I have a few seconds. We need to have a roll call vote on this, Superintendent.
Member Pritchett,
Aye.
Member Morosky,
Aye.
Member Wu,
Aye.
Member Garcia, Member Villa, Member Rhodes,
Aye.
Member Phillips.
Aye.
Oh, student preferential vote.
Aye. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. And just before we move on, just a couple things. I've been asked if we all feel comfortable just turning on our screens. That way the people on Zoom can actually see us when they call in for public comment. Just keep your audio off. And then we've also been asked by our health department if we can all just please keep our masks on at all times unless you're eating or drinking. My video. All right. Item 7.2, approve memorandum of understanding MOU with UPE for safely reopening schools to in-person instruction services and AB 1200 disclosure. Mr. Boziel?
Good evening. There we go. Good evening, Board President, Board of Education, Superintendent Aguilar. We are here tonight to present to you for your approval, the MOU entered into between the district and UPE, United Professional Educators, for safely reopening our schools to in-person instruction services, and also to provide the AB 1200 disclosure. Let's see, I have a clicker here. Focus up there. Okay, so some of the key provisions of this MOU include health and safety protocols consistent with our return to health plan, consistent with the model that we've shared and begun today. Students will return to school for 3 hours of instruction on an AABB 2-day-a-week small group model. And students also may select a distance learning option. The dates for our reopening of our various segments are listed. And again, this is similar to what you've seen before in other agreements. This is the agreement with our UPE union, who represent many of our site administrators, principals, assistant principals, various district coordinators, and so forth, and many other folks. Some of the other key provisions of this agreement: the agreement includes an interactive process for employees with medical conditions, extra pay for UPE members for their work in supporting the on-site training and preparation site employee to return to the school sites. That's the 3 days prior to each segment having their students return. The MOU also includes language, of course, that the agreement is non-precedent setting and only applies for this period of time through the end of the school year. AB 1200 fiscal impact. The more detailed document should be included for our AB 1200 document. The bottom line impact is the estimated costs are $123,000, $372. Coming out of CARES ESSER funds, budget for the books and supplies will be reduced by that amount to offset that increase in salaries and benefits with a net budget impact of $0. There's our link to the AB 1200 document. And that's all I have for you for your consideration. Okay.
Yes, we do. Our first public comment is from Allison French Tubo.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. I just wanted to say I'm excited to see this agreement and to see that it includes the 3-foot spacing that's currently recommended. This seems really important to be able to bring our students back to as much in-person time at school as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next comment, Ms. Moretti.
Our second public comment, the person is not currently online.
Okay. All right. Do we have any board member comments or questions on this item? All right. We will go and, oh, sorry, I can't see you right there. Sorry. Member Morowski, go ahead. Yes, yes.
I wanted to thank staff and our principals for the hard work in reaching this MOU, and thank our principals for the preparations that have gone into making today and the next couple weeks exceptionally wonderful for our students and staff. And I just wanted also to echo Ms. French Tubo's comment that I appreciate the inclusion of the updated CDC guidance of no more than 3 feet. Appreciate it. I would move the approval.
All right. All right, I have a motion and a second. Student preferential vote? Oh, sorry, did you have your hand up, Member Garcia? No.
Okay.
Are you sure? Okay, all right. Student preferential vote?
Aye.
All right. Superintendent, roll call?
Member Pritchett?
Aye.
Member Morowski?
Aye.
Member Wu? Member Garcia? Member Villa? Aye. Member Rhodes?
Aye.
Member Phillips?
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you, Superintendent. Item 7.3, update on reopening MOU next steps.
President Pritchett, if I can just interject, I want to just make sure that our board and our public at large is aware. This is not going to be the same comprehensive update that you've been used to. That covers every aspect of reopening. Today we celebrate that we've reached another milestone. We actually did reopen. There are other updates that we can provide, but for this presentation, I've asked Mr. Bosio, in light of the direction that our board gave at the last board meeting related to providing standing updates to the board on the question of implementing the guidelines from CDC, CDPH, now also Sac County Public Health. So this is a more limited presentation, providing an update to the board on that specific matter. We'd be happy to come back with a more comprehensive update and summary as you all continue to visit our school sites and ask for further information and feedback that you're getting at our next board meeting. But this one is going to be a little bit more limited on that topic based on the direction that the board provided when you ratified the SCTA MOU.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks. Okay, good evening again, Board President, Board, and Superintendent. As the Superintendent mentioned, this presentation is to provide an update on our reopening MOUs and next steps as requested by the Board at the previous board meeting. And specifically around this question of updated guidance from CDC, CDPH, SCDPH regarding a 3-foot distancing between students in classrooms. As you may recall from the previous meeting when we shared the MOU with SCTA, that agreement called for in generally 6 feet of spacing. That was the case when those negotiations were occurring. That MOU, as described previously, contains language that the district will comply with guidelines and regulations from the CDC, CDPH, CDE, Cal OSHA, and Sac County Department of Public Health. The MOU also includes in section 1A3 that any revisions and updates to the above health and safety guidelines, if any provision contained in this MOU conflicts with revised or updated guidelines, best practices, recommendations, and considerations from SCDPH or CDPH, the parties agree to meet and confer. Since that time of the MOU agreement and ratification, and since the last board meeting, the district has sought to meet and confer with SCTA on this matter by letter on March 31st. On April 5th, SCTA declined to meet and confer with the district on this matter. And just yesterday, on the 7th, the district sent another letter concerning the need to meet and confer. In the district's March 31st letter, the district cites the revised CDC guidance, reducing the recommended physical distancing between students in classroom setting to at least 3 feet. And these are quotes from the letter, states that given the updated health and safety guidance related to physical distancing, the impact of these updates may have on the number of students who can return to our schools for in-person instruction and schedule for students, the district would like to meet and confer pursuant to the MOU. Vincent, can you go ahead and put up the letter for us? Take a quick look at that actual letter. Thank you, sir. Go ahead and scroll down a little bit. That's fine. Okay. Go ahead and keep scrolling. Thank you. That's want to give folks the opportunity to look at the full letter as opposed to just the excerpts. I think we can go ahead and move on. Go ahead and bounce back to the PowerPoint. Oh, there we go. So on Monday, the district received a response from SETA, which stated that, in quotes there on the PowerPoint, essentially that SETA does not agree that the CDC guidance of around 3 feet conflicts with the language in the MOU concerning 6 feet of distancing, and therefore, amongst other reasons, but they determined to deny our request to meet and confer, stating that that is not applicable. Go ahead and flip on over to that document as well for me, Vincent. That's good right there. So, as mentioned previously, in response, the district yesterday sent a second letter to SCTA, again requesting to meet and confer. The district essentially, in that quoted language there on the slide, disagrees with SCTA's contention that the language is not inconsistent, and also that it was an understanding during negotiations that the district would be coming back to further discuss the issue around the revised guidance from CDC, CDPH, and now Sac County Public Health around a minimum of 3 feet distancing between students. The district pointed to not only the revised or updated guidance from CDPH or Sac County Public Health, which came, Sac County issued updated guidance on March 26th, but also updated guidance from CDE that was issued also on March 26th around FAQs for defining under AB 86 what the understanding, what the meaning of providing in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible means. In that quote there on the slide from CDE talks about what that means, that essentially all students should be offering, I'll just read the quote, an LAA with more than sufficient space, staffing, hygienic supplies, etc., to ensure health and safety of all students, should be offering full day and full week in-person instruction to all of its students. In our letter from yesterday, the district also shared updated information that the district has gathered around classroom capacity. That means essentially the district has looked at its classrooms to determine whether each classroom can fit with all of the students that might come back under a 6 foot, 4 foot, or 3 foot spacing. Basically, that shows that all of our classrooms, almost all of our classrooms, can space desks 3 feet apart without exceeding the total student head counts for that particular grade level. Vincent, let's go on. Let's show that letter from the 7th. Thank you. Go ahead and scroll down. Pause right there, please. Go ahead and scroll down. All right, let's go ahead and bounce back to the PowerPoint, please. Another update we have for you regarding the reopening of schools and MOUs and next steps concerns our ongoing negotiations that the district has been undergoing with our SEIU labor partner, representing a large portion of our classified staff. Between February 25th and April 3rd, the district met for 8 days and exchanged 12 proposals. And those proposals are linked here and can be found on the district's website, negotiations dashboard. While we have each made movement in our proposals, there are several areas of disagreement that remain. And those are listed there in the bullets. And you can see more about them in the posted proposals. But those primary areas of outstanding issue between the parties involve leaves, childcare, physical distancing, reimbursement and stipends, and plexiglass and N95 fit tested masks for certain particular situations and staff. Due to the lack of, or the inability of the parties to come close to an agreement at this time, the district filed a request for impasse with PERB on the 5th, on Monday, and the district is awaiting a determination by PERB whether it will deem the parties to be at impasse. If that is determined by PERB, the next step would be for the parties to engage in a mediation. And we will keep you posted on the developments related to this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Bozia. I believe we have 11 live public comments on this item. Is that correct, Ms. Moretti?
Yes, that's correct. And the
Okay. With that, I'm going to allow the 2 minutes for each of the 11 commenters.
The first public comment is from Allison French Dubo.
Greetings, board. I just wanted to comment on this, that I look forward to seeing the MOU being amended to reflect the CDC's guidance that is based on the research schools that were open much sooner than the over 390 days that our students have waited. So this is not a random guess based on speculation back in last March. This is based on research over the past year. So very important. Love to see everybody supporting science and research. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next comment is from David Fisher.
Hi, my name is David Fisher, president of the Sacramento City Teachers Association, and a parent and a teacher in the district. SETA strongly supports our classified coworkers represented by SEIU Local 1021. Despite ongoing and concerted efforts to divide us, SEIU and SCTA have sat side by side and remained unified in our respective negotiations with the district. The proposal to safely reopen schools from SEIU is entirely reasonable and one the district should immediately agree to. Despite an agreement to work together with us and the city of Sacramento to explore childcare solutions for Sac City parents and staff, the district has failed to follow through on this commitment. Even while schools have been closed to in-person instruction, SEIU members have been providing the in-person essential services to keep the district operating in these trying times. Our students deserve to return to in-person instruction under the highest health and safety standards possible. So too does the district staff, including our classified coworkers. However, the superintendent appears to be relying on advice from Lozano Smith to try to subvert our agreement. Despite our never spending a single minute in discussions with us, Mr. Aguilar now represents himself as the expert on what occurred in negotiations. Our actual negotiations with the district bargaining team, particularly Matt Turkey, Victoria Flores, and Lee Sada, were constructive and very productive, and they produced an agreement we all can be proud of. We see no reason to reduce the student safety standards achieved in our mutual agreement. I'd like to quote LA Unified School Superintendent Austin Butner, who said, "Our challenge is convincing families that schools are safe, not finding ways to stuff more kids into classrooms." We agree. Today is the first day that students return to in-person instruction in Sac City. It's a day we are all excited and hopeful to see has finally arrived. And with $300 million more coming in from COVID and a vastly improved Sac City budget, the time is now to make the improvements we've been advocating for since 2016 and earlier. Look forward to working with the new school board and making Sac City the destination district in California. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Our next speaker is Ingrid Hutchins.
Good evening. I'm going to be combining my time with Jody Bone and Carla Randazzo tonight.
Okay.
Good evening, board members. My name is Ingrid Hutchins, and I've been a teacher in your district for 20 years. I'm calling in tonight as you discuss the MOU next steps to give you a perspective that's often missing from our conversation, that of the people who have boots on the ground, your teachers and other on-site staff. As a second grade teacher, I was among the teachers involved in the first wave of opening. After participating in numerous bargaining sessions, I had high hopes for our reopening plans. The agreement we created with the district would have made our return to campus as smooth as possible and as safe as possible. However, as the days passed, it became painfully clear that we would not have the equipment nor the support that we were promised. I returned to my classroom this Monday to find that some of the equipment we were guaranteed during the bargaining sessions hadn't been delivered, nor had the district technicians come by to connect the polycams that had already arrived. My HVAC system, which was supposed to be running a couple hours before the school day had started, was not running yet. Pieces of equipment such as the tripod, a monitor, and a power strip were dropped off throughout the day. By Tuesday morning, my HVAC system had been reprogrammed, thankfully, but we were told that no one was coming to install our new technology. Not only that, but some of the items that were needed, such as Chromebooks for our in-class students, and a screw that is required to attach the polycam to the tripod won't be delivered until next week. Our students in Group B returned to campus today. My story is not unique. Primary and SDC teachers across the district had similar experiences. Instead of spending time training and prepping for our concurrent hybrid teaching, we were trying to figure out how to install equipment that we had never seen before and without all the necessary pieces. Even when the installation was successful, many teachers had tech issues that were well beyond the scope of their expertise. I was lucky. Our technology coordinator, Nova Kat, read my frustrated post on Facebook and came to my rescue Wednesday morning. She worked with one of our tech teachers to troubleshoot the issues my Polycam was having. Unfortunately, our district only has one Nova. What we needed was the tech group we were promised. SEIU has asked the district to add more tech since October, but they didn't. Since the district ignored that request, teachers, principals, retired employees, and family members had to roll up their sleeves to do what the district promised us they would do. This is an ongoing theme in SCUSD, one that I'm hoping the board does something to change. Today, we welcomed Blending Learning Group B back to our TK3 and SDC classrooms. On a positive note, we were thrilled to actually meet our students in person, and it really made this year so happy for so many of us. Our students who are on campus today were excited as well. From the experience of actually being in a classroom with a group of 9 students, I can tell you a few things. 6 feet is barely enough. Placing desks 6 feet apart in a primary classroom doesn't mean your students stay that far apart. When you add children to a room, we're looking at more than just furniture. Students and teachers need to walk past the furniture while maintaining the required distance. When you're measuring between desks, you're not taking that into account. Many times today, I had to remind my students that they were too close to one another. If we reduce that space that we've created in the current desk configuration, our students will practically touch one another at times. Some of our students who are learning on Zoom had a rough day. They felt left out. While their friends that they've built community with were excited to be in school today, my students on Zoom looked dejected. We need to make plans to create a virtual academy in the fall for students who can't or don't wish to return to the classroom. Each child deserves to be taught by a teacher who's devoted to their learning needs, and they shouldn't have to watch while other children get to return to school if their family has decided that's not for them. Concurrent teaching is widening the equity and access gap. While it's true that no model is perfect, our students deserve the model that will serve each of them best, both academically and emotionally. Any discussion regarding reopening next steps needs to give serious consideration to the input of the teachers, classified staff, and principals, as we're the ones who are witnessing the return to schools in real time. Providing our students with quality, safe education requires us to move beyond the theories provided by those who aren't doing the work. Trust and respect your employees enough to listen to us. Prior to the MOU with SDTA being ratified by the board, you were already discussing making changes. I implore you to honor the original MOU before you set your sights on anything else. We're still waiting for the technological help. We're still waiting for pieces of equipment. The district hasn't successfully made good on the promises made in the original MOU. Do that first. Although California is seeing fewer cases of COVID recently than we have in the past, that could change at any time. Many states who have reopened their campuses are currently experiencing an uptick in cases. If we enter a 4th wave in California, it will impact our schools. Keeping our current goal of 6 feet distance will help keep our students and staff healthy, which in turn will keep our schools open through June 17th. That should be the goal, not reducing distance in the classroom.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchins. Next commenter, Ms. Moretti.
Yes, the next speaker is Jacob Douglas.
Mr. Douglas, I believe you're on mute. Oh, there you go. Go ahead. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
We're like an AT&T commercial. Superintendent Aguilar and members of the board, I want to implore you to pursue full reopening for students and families who desire to send their children back to school, while at the same time rejecting the concurrent learning model, which has been shown in nearly every district in our area to be a failed model. Families and teachers alike, including the students that you are supposed to serve, are not served by the concurrent learning model. It is a failure. Our state is currently 50th in reopening our schools. And while some schools that have reopened nationwide have experienced upticks in COVID, many schools that have reopened have experienced no uptick in COVID in comparison to community spread. It is time for us to no longer pat our backs as we sit last place in a nation that is showing that education is neither valued nor considered essential. Shame on you, SCTA, for being an unreasonable negotiations partner, and shame on you, Sacramento City Unified School District, for not doing enough to serve our children and patting your backs in the midst of failure.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Next commenter, Ms. Moretti.
Our next speaker is Jason Spann.
Hi, I'm stating my support for a return to 5 days a week in-person learning as soon as possible. Although the district has wasted many months just getting to partial reopening of schools, I appreciate the recent work to at least get kids back to the classroom. However, there's much work to be done in catching up with the rest of the country and many other California school districts and private schools and getting back to 5 day a week in-person school, formerly just referred to as school, and hopefully will again be referred to as school as soon as possible. The community is watching and expects full school openings to be on the board agenda until it is implemented. Much of the science has been updated since the current reopening plan was initiated, including the CDC guidance on 3 foot versus 6 foot separation. This, combined with increased vaccination and decreased COVID-19 rates, demands that the district finalize and implement a return to 5 days a week as soon as possible. And if there's another uptick or variant, then you still need to figure out a way to get kids back to school full time. I would also like to speak to the recent impasse between the district and the Service Employee International Union. There is a saying, never let a crisis go to waste. That seems to be the ideology of SEIU in using COVID-19 pandemic as a cash grab. What a great strategy in taking advantage of a dire situation where the city's children are facing mental health issues, including higher suicide rates, kids just checking out of school altogether, and diminished academic achievement. Using these kids as gambling chips in negotiations for increased pay and benefits during one of, if not the worst crises of our lifetime. If it were not so despicable and disgusting, these negotiation tactics would almost be admirable. Asking for large stipends and childcare for jobs you were hired to do when Sacramento families are facing reduced work schedules, reduced pay, unemployment, and insufficient childcare themselves. Also asking for 6 foot spacing when the science says 3 foot is sufficient. All employees of the district, whether unionized or not, were hired for the sole purpose of educating the city's children. I'm hoping that they can settle the differences and put personal gain aside in this endeavor.
Thank you, Mr.
Make it
Spann.
work and get back to school.
Please wrap up. Thank you, Mr. Spann.
Our next speaker is John Myers.
Good evening. As a member of Open Sac City Schools and now Students First, we have repeatedly asked this board and superintendent to take the basic first step of putting full-time in-person learning plans, whatever those plans might be, on a public agenda. On February 18th, the district proposed a K-6 hybrid return plan beginning April 8th, which actually happened today. Thank you, by the way. That hybrid proposal was made on February 18th without a labor MOU in place, but just based on the clear common belief that children need to be in school and that decisive action needed to be taken to make that first step. We frankly have been disappointed not to see any subsequent agenda topic, any discussion, any survey on the topic of full-time in-person learning, or even 3-foot spacing until tonight. We were glad to see Superintendent Aguilar's March 31st request to meet with SCTA this week on 3-foot distancing, a key element of full-time in-person learning. But we were likewise disappointed to see the pedantic militant responses from SEIU, 1020, and SCTA, which had nothing to do with the children of our district and everything to do with delaying any progress. These groups have attached themselves to six-foot spacing, an obsolete arbitrary guideline only as a way to delay returning kids to school. We all know that 40,000 children in Sac City Unified have suffered terrible learning loss over the last 13 months. And we all know 3 hours a day, twice a week does far too little to catch our students up to their peers in other neighboring districts. We ask tonight that Superintendent Aguilar and this board take the bold move of proposing a full-time in-person learning plan for those students and families that need it. Like we've already heard tonight in comments, there will always be critics and naysayers, people that pretend that neighboring districts aren't already full-time. There will always be forces that would rather argue for the sake of arguing. But Sac City families desperately need your leadership in returning children back to school full-time in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Myers.
Our next speaker is Karen Rice.
Ms. Rice, can you hear us? You are on mute, Ms. Rice.
Yes, I'm unmuted now. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Good evening. You may remember me from the last couple board meetings. Last time I spoke on behalf of the parent group SUSD Students First. Tonight I am coming just strictly as a parent of 2 children in the district, as well as a teacher, but from another district. So first, I did want to thank you, Superintendent Aguilar. I read the April 7th letter prior to this meeting, and also David Fisher's response. And Superintendent, I appreciate that you have tried to reopen discussions around the current MOU so that the district can move forward with opening safely to its fullest capacity possible. The most current science-based guidelines do now state that students can be distanced at 3 feet apart. It is clear that our current MOU, which is based on the old science of 6 feet, is in conflict with the new guidelines. And we need to get our students back to full in-person learning as soon as possible. And it doesn't take a mathematician to recognize the gross difference that 3 feet allows compared to 6 feet when talking about getting our students back in the classrooms. So again, I thank you for recognizing that, and I wish others like our SCTA president would as well. As you stated in your April 7th letter to SCTA, the district has the unilateral authority under the MOU to reopen schools in accordance with state law and the updated federal, state, and local health officials' guidance. It really needs to do so immediately. Our students deserve better. And quite frankly, so do our teachers. And let me speak to why. Last time I talked at length about the impact distance learning has had on our students and the challenges I anticipated our teachers facing with a new concurrent model, of which I think you've heard plenty tonight. I feel what has not been addressed enough in the current discussions and board meetings is the number of families who are leaving this district. And I know I speak for many of our schools when I say that we have seen a significant decrease in enrollment as parents and students have lost patience with this district and left. And as we look to our next steps needed to reopen at a full-time capacity, more families will
That
leave
was
while
2
they wait
minutes.
in limbo.
Thank you,
And
Ms.
so
Rice.
what is the
Please wrap
result?
it up.
Well, we're losing friends, we're losing our teachers who are getting pink slips for doing a job that they've worked tirelessly at all year. And it's a disgrace. So I implore you to look at our reopening, the stimulus money that you have, and find a way to restructure to get rid of the concurrent and find a way to keep jobs for our teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Rice. Please wrap up your comment. Ms. Rice.
Yeah, thank you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Kelly Newbill.
Good evening, board members. I would first like to thank Board President Pritchard for taking the time to talk to me yesterday. You were very responsive to my concerns, and your time and help were greatly appreciated. I am a concerned parent of a kindergartner and fourth grader. And besides being a concerned parent, I'm also a marriage family therapist with extensive experience in children's mental health. My family has been very fortunate that our boys' emotional health has been impacted very little. However, a majority of our district children have been grossly affected by the negative effects of not being in school. 19 out of 24 kids in my son's kinder class are going in person. Only 5 elected to stay distance learning. And I'm sure a majority of elementary grade classes have similar turnouts. When will we survey appropriately what the needs are of these families who desire the distance learning option? You have not asked the families if they desire distance learning because of transportation issues, health concerns, or employment concerns, or simply a preference with no other reason. We have also not asked if families want to go back 5 days either. In my conversations with many parents, I have heard that the desire to go back 5 days is highly prevalent, and if they had been asked that option, they would have said yes. My kindergartner went back to school today and couldn't stop talking about it all week. He was smiling from ear to ear this morning and when I picked him up. Let's correctly survey our families next time so we can base our decisions on what our community really wants and needs. I know the board has come to an impasse with the union, but I highly encourage and implore you to push forward with getting our kids in school 5 days a week as soon as possible. The kids of our district are depending on you to be their advocate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newbill.
Our next speaker is Kimberly Bucholtz.
Good evening, board members. My children were absolutely thrilled to return to the classroom this morning. They ran early morning laps around the block with their excited energy. And I spoke with another parent whose son slept in his school clothes last night because he was so excited to be back to school. As a parent, this moment was bittersweet. Sweet because of the genuine happiness my children felt, but bitter because they should have been in the classroom months ago and should be going more than just 2 half days a week. I read the recent correspondence between Superintendent Aguilar and David Fisher regarding the meet and confer provision of the MOU. Superintendent Aguilar, I commend you on drafting a professional, reasoned response to such a disingenuous April 5th email from Mr. Fisher. 6 feet distancing is at least 3 feet distancing. Quite the scholar, that guy, and quite the mental gymnast with that sort of reasoning to keep kids from their classrooms. Why stop at 6 feet, Mr. Fisher? How about 12 feet? How about 50 feet? It's nonsense. Mr. Fisher's disingenuous email makes clear that the SCTA's leadership has no intent to bargain in good faith. I am shocked that our beloved and well-respected teachers are led by such a dishonest president. One of SCTA's stated purposes in its bylaws is to promote professional attitudes and ethical conduct among members. There is nothing professional about the conduct of the SCTA's recent actions. It's time to force a full-time reopening for our students who are so eager to be with their teachers and peers on campus. I implore you to commit tonight to a full-time reopening, if not this spring, then most certainly in the fall. Relatedly, my views on reopening do not represent a small minority as suggested during the last special board meeting. Survey results demonstrate that majority of families in the district want their children to attend in person. And my guess is that many more would if more than a paltry 6 hours a week of school was offered. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Was that our last comment, Ms. Moretti?
No, we have 2 more. And the next public comment is from Lisa Lindberg.
Hello, my name is Lisa Lindberg, and I am a parent of 3 students at Sac Unified, 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade. I'm happy to see the kids return to school today. However, I'm disappointed it is not full-time 5 days and is not all grades. The district needs to do more to get kids back to school this year for longer school days and not push this off fall. My kids have screen fatigue, their social and emotional learning has stagnated, and despite heroic efforts by the teachers, screen Zoom education is not cutting it. The impact to English language learners at-risk youth is appalling. Mental health impacts are up significantly. As a parent, I believe I need to be given a choice between distance learning or on-site learning. In my situation, my kids need to be in person learning full 5 days a week, and I'm not alone. I'm extremely disappointed that the other school districts around us are in-person learning for 5 days a week. Our school is at 1 day at best if you add up the hours. Now, despite the requirements of the 3-foot spacing updated from all the health and county requirements, refusal from the labor partners to discuss this is appalling. As the district and board, it is on you to resolve, and you need to do more. Other districts are using science to make decisions, not political reasons. Several scientific studies have been published that 3-foot spacing is okay. That is why all the scientific bodies and government agencies have revised this criteria. Listen to the scientific experts, not fear. Please serve our children. They are the ultimate customer, not the unions, not the adults, but the children. Thank you.
Our final speaker on this item is Terrence Gladney.
Good evening again. If I were to give the district or, we as a community full benefit of the doubt, I would assume that from day one, when we went to distance learning, we were going full board towards returning in person. So that means over a year, we focus on returning in person with a 6-foot distance. Only recently has it been modified to 3 feet. There are also other indicators that are required for the 3 feet to be effective, meaning that the kids have to have their mask on all the time. It also means that our buildings and facilities need to be adequate. But if we spent over a year preparing for a 6-foot distance and supporting that science or data on the current state of our buildings around 6 feet, have we done the same thing around 6 feet? Is there data that we have within our district that shows our buildings are sufficient to have kids at a 3-foot distance? I have not seen that. So we can't pick and choose what the CDC says is appropriate. We have yet to address adequate outdoor learning space, which is also a bullet item. And I've been talking to you guys and requesting for months data that shows how much does it cost to build an outdoor amphitheater learning space that would be sustainable even beyond our bond dollars if we, reconstruct the facility. That's the best. If we're talking good, better, best, 3 feet is good. The best is 6 feet, or, I know my kid won't get COVID at home. So there's good, better, best. The further we are away, we increase the likelihood that we're not going to contract the disease. So yes, 3 feet is a minimum, but aren't we tired as a district? Aren't we tired of doing the minimum?
Thank you, Mr. Gladney. All right, we're going to go into board discussion. Superintendent, do you know what percentage of classrooms are at max with the 6-foot rule?
In terms of, President Pritchett, is the question related to attendance rates or capacity?
Attendance rates.
Well, as you know, today was the first day. We have one of our groups, our Group B. Our Group A will start on Tuesday and come back on Wednesday as well. I certainly can make a commitment that as we monitor attendance rates, we would be able to establish what our capacity might be for the possibility of entertaining the idea of having more students in our classrooms. I do want to just mention that we have posted on our website for our community to be able to study on their own information related to each of our classrooms at each of our schools across the district, with information about the number of desks that we can fit at 6, 3, and 4 feet. So I can see the importance of coming back and sharing information related to attendance. I did visit several of our schools today, and we certainly are hoping that we will have more students attend in-person instruction because there were, and again, it's the first day. Tomorrow we'll see if we have more students, of course. We also had some challenges in the area of transportation, but we would certainly be interested and committed to sharing information related to attendance across our elementary schools once our A group comes back next Tuesday and Wednesday.
Okay, so I mean, as we know, we have a lot of parents that have questions regarding this. So I'm wondering, as we acquire this information, we make sure that we put it on our website and it be easily accessible for parents to be able to see what the percentage rate is in each of the classes, and what the capacity of doing 6 feet versus 3 feet would be. Perfect, thank you. Is there any other board comments or questions regarding this item? No. Student member Shake.
Thank you, Madam President. There's a lot of flashbacks to when we approved this MOU and sort of the questions that I asked Mr. Bozian, the superintendent. And I think their answers were perfectly clear, just as the MOU was perfectly clear, right? Section 1A3. Meet and confer. And so when we talk about honoring the MOU, we should perhaps realize that there's months of studies that we're sitting on and weeks of updated guidelines from county, state, and local authorities. There are entire states that have opened schools with 3 feet, and we haven't seen any of the sort of fourth wave fear mongering that we might have heard earlier tonight. It's not about reducing student safety. It's more about opening up our opportunity to students who haven't been able to come back because 3 hours a day is not feasible for so many students in this district. As I've talked about a number of times, the 6 hours a week locks out so many people who would otherwise want to be in those classrooms. With that being said, I appreciate Ms. Newbill's public comments about how the district should be asking more questions, more surveys, to see how we can accommodate and how we can reach those parents who might have varying sort of problems coming back. I would just say, today is the first day that we as a board are in this room. I'm excited. I'm sure everyone else is. I'm sure kids who are going back to their classrooms were 10 times as excited. And it's really sad that our presentation couldn't be about that because of plays like this. It's honestly upsetting. So I'm looking forward to moving as a district towards science, towards what's best for students. But I would really wish that we could have everyone on board when we do that. Thank you.
Very well said, Student Member Shake. And Member Garcia?
Yes, thank you. It's always hard to follow Board Member Shake. He's just so eloquent, passionate, and, so proud that you're a student here at Sac City Unified. So, but I did want to go back to sort of next steps, really understanding next steps, because we clearly have a very different interpretation of what the language in the MOU says. And I disagree with SETA's interpretation of the language. So I just don't know where that leaves us as a board who gave clear direction to the superintendent and the negotiations team to go back to meet and confer and talk about, exercising that provision in the MOU to talk about a 3-foot distance versus a 6-foot distance. And I also want to understand how we start taking into account attendance rates, how we start taking into account, the desires of our parents. Many parents chose not to potentially send their kids to school because it just wasn't feasible, right? As Board Member Shake mentioned, 6 hours a week could potentially be more of a hassle for many parents who don't have the flexibility, who don't have other supports. So I just need to understand, where does this leave us?
Thank you, board member. Well, I can only say that the district, we will keep on trying to discuss these issues with our partners and to persuade them that it is in everyone's best interest to get together to discuss these matters, whether it's strictly a discussion around 3 feet or whether it's a discussion around other options and ideas for bringing more students back for more hours and more days. I think that's it's something that we understand loud and clear from the board. That that is our current thinking and current goal.
Member Garcia, if I could just interject, in the letter that I wrote to SCTA, you will read that I am seeking clarification about whether they are in fact unwilling to follow the meet and confer language of the MOU, in which case, if that is confirmed, then we will come back to the board with that information, with options that we might want to pursue, that we would lay out to the board, everything from moving forward with an action that would be unilateral in nature, but certainly my hope is that we would be in a position to effectuate the meet and confer and talk about ways in which we can keep focused on what this is about, which is finding ways in which we can serve our students directly in person, provide the interventions and supports that are much easier to manage when you're in front of our students. Our wonderful educators, of course, are experts in that, and I saw it throughout the day today in how our teachers interact with our students, of course, in person, and can spend quality time with them. So we just sent that letter, as you know, just recently, and certainly I will keep the board informed of SCTA's response. But I do think that it's important that we confirm whether they, in fact, are unwilling to meet and confer. I would also ask, just in the spirit of making sure that our board members and our community understand the concept of meet and confer, that legal counsel, either Mr. Bozio or Ms. Grantham, kind of just give you a description of what meet and confer means within the process of negotiations.
Sure. I don't know if Ms. Grantham is she with us? Not quite used to this setup where we don't see everybody on the Zoom at one time, but meet and confer. It's not. It's process of getting together and speaking between the parties. It's not necessarily negotiations. It's not negotiations to come to an agreement per se, but it's, as the language would indicate, meeting, conferring, discussing a topic before moving on to action around that matter. Yep.
So they've declined the offer to just have a meeting and discussing the distance issue.
Correct. In the email response that I received to the first letter, they felt that it was unnecessary because of their interpretation that they laid out, which is that because 3 feet is a smaller number than 6 feet, that there was no need to make any revisions to that aspect of the MOU. I, of course, made clear that that is not our interpretation and that we disagree with that assessment. Just as other neighboring districts and districts across the state and the nation have interpreted it very differently, of course. This is not a case in which I think Sac City is trying to demonstrate any type of innovation or trying to be a leader in this. We would essentially be doing what many districts have started to do, which is they started in a hybrid instructional model approach, and then have moved into bringing back more students and bringing them back for additional instructional days as well. And so that certainly is, I think, the pattern that we're trying to pursue. Again, I want to just celebrate that today we reached another milestone. It was our first day with our students back. And I think that my commitment to bring back information about what our attendance rates might look like. We, in fact, may end up with classrooms that even at 6 feet would warrant some type of collapsing as opposed to having 4 or 5 students in groups A and 4 or 5 students in group B, because even at 6 feet, we could collapse those groups. Certainly, that's something that we would want to discuss with you as a board once we have that information in front of us. I know that there have been inquiries made about our educators who have asked about that as well, because they, of course, are in front of students and they have seen the number of students. Again, my hope is that what we saw today in terms of attendance rates hopefully will increase very quickly as early as tomorrow for our B group, and that over the weekend, many of our community members will talk amongst themselves and talk about how seriously we have taken these health and safety measures that we've implemented across the district. I saw it firsthand in having to tell many of our parents that they couldn't enter the facility with their children, and they're not used to any of that. And I saw it in how our students lined up at blacktops and the physical distancing that was required, and so many aspects that I think our community hopefully will be able to see firsthand and grow their confidence about the commitment that we have made to provide a safe learning environment that will maintain the health of our students and our staff, and that will result hopefully in more students showing up in the A group on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week.
Well, thank you. I realize that the goal here is to have more students in the classrooms. So I appreciate that you're thinking outside of the box in reaching that goal. If we don't get a meet and confer on the 3 feet. Thank you.
Member Phillips and then Member Bella.
Just a question on the 6 foot versus 3 foot. Is it sounds like it's a matter of semantics. Have we considered having a third party perhaps come in and try and find a better understanding of that? Or are we looking toward a mediator and impasse?
I'll defer on sort of the legal aspect, Member Phillips. I don't believe that a meet and confer would result in impasse, if you will. And I'll defer again to Mr. Bozio, Ms. Grantham. At this point, I think the meet and confer is just to discuss the interpretation and our position around what we believe is important for our students at this time. And that is that the guidance is very clear, that we can serve more students, as many community members have been asking about, so that we could potentially move into a different instructional model. We have not thought about asking a mediator to participate in a meet and confer a meeting at this time. So that's how I would answer that question. I guess you could argue that it's a matter of interpretation. Again, in this case, we're probably following the interpretation of many, many school districts, both here regionally and across the state and nation.
So we're still thinking that if we were able to collapse the classes and still maintain our 6 foot, that it might be better than nothing?
Well, I was just offering that, Member Phillips, because I think it is important that I report back to the board what our attendance rates turn out to be over the course of the next days. Today was the first day for our B group, and we will see what the attendance rate is for our A group. Now, I would expect that if we were to get direction from the board to adopt a plan of action where in those classrooms where we could fit collapse the A and B group students within 6 feet of separation, that there may be more parents that would like to have their students enrolled. And I think it would bring us back to what Member Garcia just mentioned, which is if the goal is to bring more students, we're going to be very quickly in a position potentially where we're still having to talk about the interpretation of guidance from those entities.
Okay, and I have one more thing. I listened to what Ms. Hutchins said. I believe it was Ingrid. She talked about what happened in her classroom today. And there are concerns obviously for like this social emotional learning and the, children being scolded or children being told, hey, you gotta get away from your classmates. So I'm just curious if we're gonna be doing something, maybe a suggestion that we poll the teachers as to what's really happening in their classrooms and kind of get a, instead of a numbers, kind of get more of an event kind of viewpoint of what's happening in the classrooms. I think it's important for us to make sure that we do hear from the teachers and that they do felt heard, because what Ms. Hutchins said really rang clear to me that there was an issue in her classroom even at 6 feet. So I just, the best that we could do to make sure that we're hearing from the people who are on the front lines would be the best.
Absolutely, Member Phillips. And I'll just say that in all of my site visits, I do my very best to have conversations, not just with our wonderful educators, but all of our employees. And so I'll continue to do that.
Thank you.
Member Villa?
So I'm just going to leave this on a positive note, as Member Sheikh had mentioned, that we should be talking about our first day of school, our children returned. And let me tell you, today was amazing. From everybody that I've spoke with, teachers, just seeing the children's faces, the parents who have called me today, the messages, the emails. They said my child came home a different person. They were singing and dancing. They were happy. Siblings who were at home together were actually getting along. So many wonderful things. It was a very emotional day for me as a parent, and I know so many parents throughout the district, and I want to put an emphasis on we did this. They're back in school. There's so many wonderful things that are coming, and we need to be thankful for our staff, our teachers, everybody who worked on the front lines today to get the kids scanned and back into their classrooms. I received a message from a parent today that said at the end of their day, they have to do a gratitude journal. And her gratitude today was sitting in her classroom with all of her friends. And to me, that is why we're here, and that's why we have these hard conversations. I'm thankful for the parents that spoke in public comments, because this is what it's about. This is why we're sitting here, is to get our kids safely back in a classroom, safely with their teachers, so we can begin educating them what they deserve, a good education. So I want to leave that on a positive note, because we can sit and talk about all of the negative things that we already know are here, but we've got a lot of work to do, but we did it. So there's something that we should all be proud of today.
Thank you, ma'am. Sorry, I keep on messing up that microphone. Thank you, Member Villa. Superintendent, in terms of what Member Phillips was asking, if we did a survey out to teachers directly, would that be considered direct dealing and something that we cannot conduct?
It could very well be. It depends on what the questions you're asking, but
So we can't reach out to them individually. We can only try to reach every single classroom by walking in a classroom and trying to survey.
But again, it depends on what you're asking. But it could be, certainly can present issues of direct dealing. If you're asking about choices and what they're recommending, or what they would agree to, or yeah.
That would be considered direct dealing.
Yeah.
Okay. Shame. Okay. Are there any other Member Morosky?
Thank you. Well, Member Villa said it so well about what an amazing day this was, and thanking everyone. So I won't repeat that. I'm just so happy to be back as well. And my kids were cohort A, so we're next Tuesday, so they're really chomping at the bit. Superintendent, I appreciate the transparency around this issue. It's something that a lot of my constituents are really concerned about, and something that, you know, I'm thinking about as a parent of a second grader and a fourth grader. You know, I think we should be focused on the needs of our kids, their how they've suffered academically, what is their social emotional state, and instead, my head hurts that we're spending our time. This is what we're spending our time talking about: is splitting hairs based on whether 3 conflicts with 6 or at least 3 is. I mean, and when it comes down to it, the framing around how everyone is thinking and talking about this is completely wrong. All we've done since this pandemic started is rip stuff away from kids and then ask questions later about whether it's safe enough to give them a little bit back. A full day in-person school is the default for school, and anything other than that should be justified. And right now, it doesn't look like it's justified based on science. And I don't know how to explain to my sons that, you know, when they're learning science and they're learning how to think critically of why they're going to school 2 days a week when the science doesn't support that. I don't know how to explain that. I mean, and I'd be ashamed to say that there are folks who don't even want to talk about, you know, that science in our system. The disengagement is really what kills me with my own kids. Like, as a parent, with my kids on Zoom, like, I can't police them, and I come over and look at them, and it's Plants versus Zombies, and it's, you know, YouTube or Googling memes of superheroes or whatever, and it's like, I can't. I'm at my wit's end about, like, actually making sure they're actually learning. They're, you know, half the time they're just not. They're not. So I'm just supportive of anything we can do to increase the amount of in-person instruction time. I look forward to coming back and figuring out, you know, how we can move forward in collaboration, hopefully. I wanted to address the tech issues that were brought up. I think, you know, it was a very good point, you know, with the ambition of what this undertaking was. You know, stuff's going to go wrong. Like, you can immediately know that and expect that. And I think, you know, you hear about the problems, you don't hear about the things that are working well. So I know, you know, we did also have a lot of things that worked well. We did have some problems, I'm sure. I know that things were disrupted today. I thank the staff that's working through all those issues. And hopefully these are just the bumps in the road that we, you know, anticipate, and we will work through together. But I would appreciate just you keeping the board up to date on what the tech issues are. And I also thought Member Phillips had a really good point of, like, how do we get feedback from our school sites if it can't be like a direct survey to teachers to ask them what they're like, can we talk about how to develop some formal, like, feedback methods to make sure that we're hearing, you know, what the needs are. And I don't know if you have any thoughts about what that could look like.
Sure thing, Member Borowski. Thank you for the question. Chief Bieda may want to interject as well. We, of course, know that our principals, and I was part of some of these discussions earlier this week, our principals were excited to meet with our staff and their staff. They will be meeting on Mondays, and that certainly is one way in which we can continue to access information across 70-plus school sites, is hearing from our principals what the feedback is from the teachers. As far as, you know, the conversations I had with principals, you know, they were doing much of what we were doing just now, really asking everybody to show some grace. The principals did everything they could to support our teachers as well. I saw in some of my visits, as early as yesterday, I saw our educators helping one another. Some of them were in one classroom and others were in their classroom, and they were acting as if they were students. How do you not be inspired? How do you not get inspired by that kind of collaboration between peers and between professionals? Yes, there are aspects to this reopening. There were screws that were not long enough to hold some cameras, and we had to order some special screws and other items. But by and large, for the effort of doing something that is new to all of us, concurrent instruction is new to all of us. I was inspired by what I was able to see today, and just the agility of many of our principals. I saw a variety of setups. Some people had cameras in front of the projector. Some of them had them to their side. Some of them had them in front of them, in front of their own desks. And I think that that's what we should expect. Just creativity and agility. And I saw that throughout the day today. But we certainly can come back to you and provide a summary of what our principals are reporting to us as part of their meetings with their teachers, because I do think it's important to hear.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Perfect. Are there any other board member comments or questions? No? Okay, so this is an informational item. I look forward to future conversations on this. Thank you, Mr. Bozia. Item 8.0, Board Workshop Strategic Plan and Other Initiatives. 8.1, Initial Summer School Programming Plans. Ms. Pieda.
President Pritchett, if I can just interject, because you'll hear it from Chief Pieda, and she certainly has expressed it to me. I do want to just set this presentation up in terms of expectations. What I would ask the board to understand is that all of our attention has been on reopening our schools. We do not have at the district level a unit that oversees summer programming, if you will, or high dosage tutoring. And so all of this is being done with the same committed individuals that work at the district office. What we thought we would present today is somewhat of a high level presentation about our initial thoughts for a robust summer program to serve our students across the district. There will be some details, but knowing our board very well, probably not the level of details that you should expect over the course of the next few weeks. We would be happy to bring this back as sort of a standing item as we continue to work on this. But I do think that it is important, and you and our community deserve to have an understanding of what our initial thoughts are around what we would like to pursue over the course of summer months.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Pieda.
Good evening, President Pritchett, Superintendent Aguilar, and members of our board. As we get ready to start to talk about summer, I want to just continue with the ending with the positive theme. I spent my morning today on our campuses. I heard incredible things and saw incredible things from our educators. I talked to our parents who are grateful and thankful. And here's one of my sweetest stories of the day. I got to help kindergartners that were coming in from the car to get safely to their classroom. They've never been on this campus before, and they were so happy. And I would ask this one little group that were walking with me, and they were staying in their distant from each other. And I kept asking them, what's your name? I'm so excited to meet you. I'm so glad you're here. You can see them smile through their masks. And this one little girl said, my name is Emily, but you can call me sweetheart. So as I walked the children into their classrooms, and this was at Hollywood Park Elementary School, as I walked the children into their classrooms, I was sharing with the teachers, this is Emily, or whatever their name is, amazing that our teachers recognize these students with their masks. They've only known them through distance learning, which I thought was incredible. And when I shared with Emily's teacher, this is Emily, but she says we can call her sweetheart. You should have seen this teacher's face. She said, I've been calling her sweetheart all year. So our kids and our teachers treasure and adore each other. They need to be together. So let's talk about how we start to think about what we can do during the summer. We're going to do our very best right now. But once we hit summer, we've got to be thinking a little bit differently, or a lot differently than the way we've thought previously. So we know that every system is designed to get the results that we get, and we know that before the pandemic, we had concerns for the way that we were caring for and supporting our students. You can go back and look at any of our data historically over time, and we have not been adequately serving our students. That has continued during the pandemic. So as we focus on our core value, recognizing that our system is inequitable by design and that we do need to do some strategic work to ensure that we can interrupt that, we also need to consider our guiding principle. What happened this year for our children? What can we do today, tomorrow, through the summer? Because we're looking at that little kindergartner, Emily, and are we creating the conditions for her to graduate from our schools, because we want her to stay in our schools with the most post-secondary choices and the widest array of options. We owe it to Emily to be thinking about that right now. So tonight I'd like to speak with you, and Superintendent shared that this will be high level, but I'll work really hard because I know the level of detail that our board expects, and I appreciate that so much from each and every one of you. Tonight we're going to talk about why a summer program, the rationale. We're going to get to look at the overall program elements and highlights and be able to consider those both from the elementary, the middle school, and the high school level. I'll share with you some of our initial thoughts around planning dates, sessions, etc. But I also want to talk about some of the challenges and next steps that we know that we face as we prepare to design this for our students. So when we start to think about why do we need a summer program that's extremely robust? And fortunately, we do have the funding. That's frequently in Sac City Unified one of the conditions that we're titrating to for our summer programming. We don't have regular funding for summer programming. So that makes it a little more difficult for us because we don't, as other districts and systems typically do, we don't have this comfortable rhythm of service in the summer that we can build upon. We have to build upon something that's very different every single year, and the board knows that. I've been here 2.5 years, and I've heard the summer programming and the challenges and the difficulties. We have funding, so we get the opportunity to do some building for what we know we really need. And why do we need a program? All you need to do is read any headline anywhere. EdSource initial data for California confirms that early grades, low-income children are hardest hit by learning loss. From Time magazine, the learning gap is getting worse as our schools rely on remote classes, especially for our students of color. And this one is recently from the LA Times. In California, 1 million English learners are at risk of intractable learning loss. So as we think about that, not just for programming for summer, keep that in your heart as we think about the very programming that we started today for Emily and all of her peers. So you can see some of the rationale for why we know that we need to operate a summer program. And when we think about that intractable learning loss, there are a lot of the children board that we care for and support who are at risk of not being able to meet that guiding principle that we all hold to with everything that we do, all do every day in Sac City Unified. We know that expanded learning, for example, in the form of summer school, especially when we're considering high-dose tutoring that is really addressing students' assessed needs, we know that that can decrease the effects of pandemic learning loss. It can increase our students' opportunity to start the 21 and 22 school year more ready to learn. And we know that we can accelerate, and we need to use this word accelerate student achievement. We talk a lot about mitigating learning loss. And when we think accelerate, we start to think about things like gate classrooms, but that's not what we're talking about. Every one of our kids deserves accelerated learning right now, and we need to figure out what they need and then be able to provide that. And summer will be an opportunity that we can do that. I want to share with you, continuing with these high-level thoughts, some of the initial anchors for our program. We know that we need programming at every single school designed by that school with the teachers and the administration sitting together, looking at their SIPSA, and collaborating to design a program that meets their school's needs and their students' needs. We all know there's nobody who knows those kids or that school better than our site-based team. So we are looking at a model that is a decentralized model from that perspective. But whenever you decentralize, you have to ensure that you have accountability tights so that we are continuing to be able to know that we can achieve our high-level goals for our students as well as for the entire program. So we're talking about a decentralized program that has tights. And I'd like to share with you what some of those tights are. The first being that we're looking for an opt-out philosophy. So we want to and need to identify students who would benefit from this summer programming and register them into the program with parents needing to tell us no thank you, as opposed to families wanting to opt in. We believe that that's very, very important for our kids and for our system. We also know that we want to ensure that we're offering these supports to some of our most vulnerable students and most at risk of the intractable learning loss. And you see them listed here, including students who are acquiring English, our students with disabilities, and I'll share more about that programming in a little bit. Students, we've talked about the concern Member Murowski shared, even seeing the disengagement in your own students, but students who have been disengaged. At one of the schools I was at today, one of the students, they had no login. They had not been logging in, and this is, a very young student missing their learning. So we need to make sure that we're offering supports for our disengaged students. Our homeless students and our students in foster care are experiencing different trauma and needs, and we need to make sure that our program is offering this to them right in the front and that they are enrolled and they have to opt out. We also need to know that one of the things that's really important, we have incredible educators. I saw and heard them today. I heard their questions. I heard them asking things like, is there any chance we're going to come back 4 days a week? Because they're so in love already with their kids and being in space with them. And that's just only after a couple hours. We know that our teachers deserve, want, and need professional learning. And so as we move into this program, because we have the funding, the time, and we want to continue to make sure that we're offering extended universal design for learning that ensures access for every one of our kids. It's one of the most important things we can be doing is build our ability to offer access to our kids. We know that ensuring that our teachers have skills with integrated ELD. Board, that means the instructional skills that you utilize when you're teaching during your whole class. It's not pulling small groups for English language development that's targeted. It's what am I doing all the time when I'm teaching to make sure I'm meeting the needs of our English learners. That's called integrated ELD. And we want to provide that for our teachers who come to us and say, I'm going to help during summer, I want to be a part of this. And we also know that anti-racist instruction is going to be paramount to making sure that we're making the gains that we need to make, and we're going to include that in our professional learning for our summer school teachers. You've heard us talk about in our distance learning plans the importance of priority standards. We've shared how those are like the rungs on a ladder. Those are the standards where if you miss any one of those in your mastery, the challenge for you to get to that next step is very, very great. So we're going to focus our program on those priority standards to keep these kids accelerated. Thought process being when school starts in the fall, 5 days a week, all day, they're ready to go. They're more ready to go. We're going to offer this program in person, 5 days a week. We know that that's what's best, and we know that this is what our students need, and we know that we can do that. We're also looking at offering 2 separate sessions. I'll share a few reasons why. Some families we know may not want to be engaged in this program for an entire summer, but we want to make sure that if we know that they need the support, that they'll at least come with us for 1. But we also know there are going to be families that need and want the entire summer. So we can do 2 separate sessions to be able to meet those needs. And we're going to do this, and I know this is hard for us, but I want to believe that we can, based on data. Because I need data to determine who we're going to invite for these programs. Who's going to go for the first 22? We need to have the ability to say, this group of students is learning these specific skills, or we cannot target in and prescribe their learning. And we know that's a challenge for us in our system. We absolutely need to have that. I'll share in a little bit, in addition, why these 2 sessions are important. We know that we need our benchmark assessments, and we want to explore youth employment opportunities. There are some really grand, and we know with Member Shake, we see that, opportunities with our youth. And there are some incredible opportunities for peer-to-peer learning. For some of our students who have mastered content and they're in high school, we can help to bring them in and make some connections that can last students beyond this connection. So we're really looking forward to being able to explore those opportunities. And when I continue to talk about the need for assessment data, the other thing that we need, because we are an improver organization, we never look at what we do and say, well, that was good enough. It never is, especially with Superintendent Aguilar. We're constantly looking to see what can we do better. And so we're looking to engage in a robust evaluation framework that will be developed with a research-based partnership so that we can look at our program, determine what worked, who did it work for, who didn't it work for. That's really important to find out, so that we can continue to improve our work. And we need that data not just for summer. It's important to know what happens over 1 session or 2 sessions, but it's more important to know what happens when these students come to us in the fall. What does their learning look like? And what does that look like over time? And how can we improve that for our kids? So these are our initial anchor program highlights. And then you hear the elements of why do we need assessments? And you'll hear repeatedly, and we all know this, we cannot improve anything that we cannot measure. And in Sac City Unified, in a lot of ways, our hands are so tied regarding being able to measure. We know that teachers are doing their assessments, but I can't go to all those incredible teachers that I heard from today and say, and what are you doing? How do you know what you're doing is working? How do you know what a student needs? And go to every single teacher and hear something different. And I can't programmatically serve all of our schools and all of our kids with apples and oranges and kumquats everywhere we go. I can't improve for you what I can't measure systemically. And that includes the work that we need to do with this summer programming. So we have to have common assessment data to help us identify these students for our programs, for session 1, for session 2, and for both. We have to have assessments to help us understand, were these selected interventions effective for this particular student? Because fall is coming, And if we gain data and find out what works and what doesn't, I can accelerate what can happen for that student. I can go to that next year's teacher with this information and say, look, we already know a little bit about what can help Emily. And this is what we know helps, and this is what we know doesn't work. I think our teachers deserve that little boost up because they've got a lot of work to do, and they're very, very busy. Our goal for 21 and 22 is to make sure that we have these common assessments, because those are also going to help us understand the impact of the summer program, the impact of the pandemic, and the impact of the trajectory of learning as our kids matriculate through. I got this incredible text from one of our leaders today, and he said, I am so excited. We just did our second interims, and I wanted to share with the board. He said that his students made a 7% gain in math, a 9% gain in ELA, and then when I said, to what do you attribute that? He could specifically tell me what they're doing to make that happen for our kids. Every one of our kids deserves that. That's only going to happen if we have common assessments. So if we start to look at what do we consider for the best opportunity for scheduling, we're looking at partnering with our youth development team and our CBOs. And Manpreet, our director, had this incredible idea. She said, what if we start with a full week of enrichment with our CBOs, help kids just to get acclimated to the campus, do art, play, have fun, build learning communities, help them be able to figure out how to move around and just work together, build that community of learners before we start to move in to the academic pieces. I thought that was a brilliant idea. I would love to take credit for that, but that is not my idea. That came directly from Manpreet, and I thought it was just a fabulous idea. Then from that week, we would move right into session 1, give a week break, then move into session 2. And then after session 2, we'd end with another CBO enrichment, full enrichment week. So that if students attended that first session, they would have the week of enrichment with the CBOs. And if they attend the second session, they get another week of enrichment with the CBOs. But our CBOs are going to be really important to our programming, because if you look at our scheduling, what we're proposing is that our students are engaged in their academic enrichment from 8 to 11:30, little lunch break, and then CBO enrichment for the rest of their afternoon. Playing games, doing art, enjoying being with other humans, which we know that our children so desperately need. And then I'd like to share the thoughts regarding our extended school year. We call this, often you hear it called ESY. And when a student is a student who has an IEP, the IEP team may decide that we need extended school year for a student to ensure that they don't regress in their IEP goals. That's the purpose of ESY, extended school year. One of the benefits of having these 2 sessions is our students who have ESY, we've aligned the first session to the ESY session. And those students could then in the afternoon participate in enrichment with CBOs. But our students who have ESY and are on IEPs also have the right to these extension and accelerated learning opportunities to mitigate their learning loss in other areas. So our hope is that some of those parents, when we invite those students, because it's opt-out, will then join us for that second session and be a part of those learning opportunities. We're also looking to we're continuing to move toward inclusion for all of our students. Every one of our students, and I think you've heard me say this before, has the right to be educated at their home school with their peers and in a very rigorous learning environment. Everybody deserves that. That doesn't happen right now for our students, but it will. During the summer, though, as the IEP goals drive what happens for our kids in ESY. But where there is alignment, students can be parts of that summer learning session anytime that we can make that align. So we can increase inclusive opportunities for our students with disabilities who are participating in ESY. And in addition, they can come back for session 2 and fully participate in a session. So we're really excited about those potential opportunities for our students. When we look specifically at elementary and middle school, important to understand that our SIPSAs are incredible drivers for us being able to improve what's happening at our sites and improve what's happening for kids. So we're looking at goals that have been identified as areas of need in a SIPSA. Remember I said that schools will design for what they know they need. So some schools may be working on math in a grade level or ELA in a grade level, or if it's secondary and when we move over to middle school, they may decide to focus on math because they have a SIPSA goal in math and they've been working really hard on that. So the schools will be deciding that. They're going to continue the focus on the priority standards. We know that we're going to need those assessments to measure and evaluate the program. And then we also, remember I said there are these tights? Know that we need these summer bridge opportunities. And the bridge opportunities absolutely can help our kids to gain confidence and comfort in navigating a campus. And we know how important that's going to be for our 7th graders. But at the same time, those bridge opportunities hone in on academic areas of need for our students. So those are some of the additional tights that we wanted to share for elementary and middle school. In high school, you'll see the same tight regarding the SIPSA, but it's very important to us. We know and we've heard from our high school kids. Our high school kids are working. Our high school kids are helping to support other siblings. Our high school kids are doing all kinds of things to make sure that our families are strong. And we don't want to eliminate the opportunity for credit recovery for any of our high school students by offering a single session. And so our goal is to be able to offer a morning session for credit recovery, a midday session for credit recovery, and a PM session for credit recovery. The goal being, when we offer it, our structure is not going to prevent you because of anything that you're already doing. Maybe you have a summer job. We don't want to prevent you from having access. We also intend to have a summer bridge opportunity for our incoming 9th graders. And then based on what sites need, know that other opportunities and programs will be available at the high school, but every single high school having a credit recovery program. And really, we should be able to offer that every summer without question. It would be a dream that our board would be able to allocate funding every summer for summer school, and we could be planning this as we're planning the beginning of our school year. We tend to be in situations like this often, and so I would look forward to us being able to discuss that with time. Some of our challenges. A lot of this is really driven by our staffing capacity. So it's absolutely a concern. Our teachers have been working really, really hard. And so when we say, but we need you for summer, please, that's hard. They've been working hard. But one of our hopes is that with this decentralized opportunity, when they're sitting with their principal, when they're helping to plan, they might say, you know what, I could do it if. I think it would work for me if. And when the principal takes all those ifs into account and the teachers have the opportunity to help build the program, what we know will happen is we'll increase buy-in and be able to build this around increasing capacity at the same time. So we think that's one of the reasons that's really important. We need to continue to engage with stakeholders to be able to operationalize this. So for example, every Friday morning, I get to enjoy an hour with our UPE board. And tomorrow, this is one thing that we have on our agenda, is to discuss summer school. And we need to continue to be able to do that. So that's the high-level plan. I'd love to hear, I'm sure we have public comments and then questions and thoughts from the board.
Thank you, Ms. Beat. I swear, when you talk, I just want to yell, hallelujah, and start like clapping. Thank the Lord. Very student-driven. Yes, I believe we had 2 live public comments.
Yes, the first public comment is from Allison French Tubo.
Good evening, board. Here I am again. I want to echo what Christina Pritchett just said and what Christine Baeta said, which is we can be planning for this while we're planning for the fall. We don't have to act like we don't know this is coming. We don't know the need. This is not directly COVID related in that we have no idea what will happen next. We know that what is happening is kids need more than they've been getting, and that we need to make plans so that their futures are as bright as they should be. Our community already has so many subgroups that have suffered from inadequate education for decades. And it is not fair at all to them or to those of you who live in the East Sac bubble with me and maybe don't think that this is your problem. Guess what? The kids in our bubble are not enough to keep our community going into the decades when parents like me eventually want to retire and sit in a comfy chair and have sewers and streets and restaurants and everything that works. We need a whole city's worth of well-educated students who become our future workforce. And so this is everybody's problem and everybody's chance to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie.
Our next and final comment is from Nikki Malevsky.
Good evening, members of the board. In tonight's board packet, there was 0 information about this item, about high-dose tutoring. So there was no way for anyone to know how to make any comments or to understand or you to even prepare your questions when there was nothing in the board pack in advance. And myself and other members of the community have made complaints over and over again about your staff not presenting information to the public or to you in advance of board meetings, and here we are again. And I feel it's very unfortunate that I have to bring that up again. And now I'll go to my prepared comments, which didn't have the benefit of seeing your presentation, nor hearing Ms. Beta talk about the importance of talking with teachers and planning this initiative, because the district has not talked with teachers at all about planning this initiative. And that unfortunately is like so many other initiatives by Superintendent Aguilar, including MTSS. There's been no discussion with teachers about this initiative, even though there is a requirement by law to be discussed with us. As we have in the past, we will continue to take all appropriate steps, including legal action, to ensure that Superintendent Aguilar complies with the district's requirements to discuss these and other initiatives with certificated collective bargaining representatives. It should also be noted that in recent decisions by the California Public Employee Relations Board, they have not only have they ruled that we prevailed, but that PERB took the extraordinary measure of awarding our attorney's fees to us. In the systemic report from the California Collaborative of Educational Excellence, which Superintendent Aguilar has refrained from presenting and discussing publicly, the CCEE notes a need to significantly improve the relations between STTA and SCUSD. Mr. Aguilar's refusal to be inclusive, his bad faith negotiations with SEIU, and his continued efforts to backtrack on agreements suggest that he remains on the same anti-union and adversarial pathway that has not served our district well during his tenure. Fortunately, the ultimate decision-making and authority in this district is with the elected school board. We hope that you will finally provide that kind of direction to this district because it so badly needs it. Thank you very much.
That is the last comment, Ms. Moretti.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being student driven. Thank you for thinking about all of the learning loss. When I think about learning loss, I think about the very students that I sent your way when the young mom in my area came to me and told me that her children hadn't even signed on and had not spoken with a teacher in weeks. And thank the Lord that she came to me and she found me and I was able to report it to the superintendent. Those children are the ones that need these type of programs. There is no reason, when you speak about high school students, I think about my own children and the situations I've had. There is not a single reason in this district that any of our children should know the last 2 weeks at the end of a school year, their senior year, that they're not going to be able to walk with their class. We should catch them far ahead of time and get them caught up and ready to go. And this plan, I know that there's a lot of work to be done. I know it was high level. There's a lot of detail, and I'm sure you're going to be working with our teachers on this, right? You said from the very beginning, very high level. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the work that you've done. To you and your staff, and amazing. And I know that this work is going to be long lasting. It's not just for this time. It's not just COVID driven, just like Ms. Tubo said, French Tubo said. It's not just COVID driven. It's going to be something that is going to last year after year to be able to get all of our students back on track. So thank you. Is there any other member, Vila?
I just want to say you amaze me. Every presentation and conversation that we've had, I know where your focus is, and it will always be on students and our families. So I thank you. I know that so many other families need this. They need a program similar to such as this, to really get their kid ready to go for the fall and just for future, their education. So that was my note. You continue to amaze me, and I'm very thankful that you're here.
Member Garcia.
Thank you. I want to thank you for getting us started off in the right, direction. I do expect that there's going to be collaboration with teachers. They're the ones who are going to be carrying out a lot of these programs. I just want to, I appreciate you showing us sort of like the headlines of some of the latest news reports, and they eat at my soul, right? We hear that English learners have about a 30% learning loss, and now they're on the verge of being intractable, right? Education laws, and those are 20% of our students. And they're also, if I recall the data correctly, they're the ones that are coming back for in-person instruction at lower rates. So this is all sort of just kind of in my head right now. We also know that many of our students of color are coming back at lower rates for in-person instruction. So the fact that we're thinking of a summer school program with in-person instruction 5 days a week, I think will be very, very helpful. I really appreciate the opt-out philosophy. So that parents understand the opportunities that are available to their children and why, but also to understand if they choose to opt out, which they fully have a right to, that they understand sort of what opportunities are going to be missed out on, and the potential impact to their children. I like that it's based on SIPSAS. I think our SIPSA process will be updated or current to reflect the needs of this past year, which is, I think, may build on prior needs of that particular school site or maybe new needs. But I appreciate that it's locally rooted, because every site has their own, I think, needs. I appreciate the professional development and learning opportunities for teachers. I think it's important to support everyone. We're an entire community. I don't know if we need to support professional development for other staff as well. I think that's something to consider. I can't express the need for assessments enough. We need to know how students are entering summer school, how students are exiting summer school, how students are coming back into the fall, in order for our system, for our resources to be invested in the right way to really support our students throughout the year. I also want to applaud the balance between academic and enrichment. When I told my daughters that, hey, you may have the opportunity to go to summer school, they're like, oh no, we're done with academics. We want academic light and double dose on enrichment or social opportunities. So I appreciate that there's that real balance between the starting off and maybe the ending. I do want to ask a couple of questions about if this is something you're thinking about, sort of the additional social emotional support, the mental health support, how that fits into the summer. Wondering if enrichment also includes sports, music, maybe even field trips. This last year, so many of our students were not able to go anywhere. Something that it's part of their grade, right? Those special field trips. I know these field trips are not always accessible to all our students, but maybe this is a way that we can make those opportunities available to all the students in a more equitable way. I like that you're breaking it up into 2 sessions. I think that's really important, and it gives families and students the opportunity to participate throughout the summer. I really appreciate the summer bridging for 7th and 9th graders. I think that's really important. So they are prepared and they are and they're confident as they go back into a new school. And of course, credit recovery opportunities, I think those are a must, right? This is all that I think would be expected of a robust summer program that we know our district is getting funds to provide and offer these types of programs. And then lastly, I just want to just say that this is the start of a conversation. This is the first summer program, and I think we can learn a lot from it so that we can build into the fall or the next academic year. But our funds through our one-time dollars, through state and federal dollars, are to fund subsequent summers, right? So it's the next summer and the summer after that. So it's really to build upon that so that we can really have a successful summer program. So thank you. Thank you for all the work, and I look forward to hearing how this evolves and how this changes based on a broader stakeholder input process. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Member Morosky?
Thank you. And I echo a lot of the points Member Garcia made, so thank you for making them. I was also just following along and appreciated so much of your initial program design. I have, I guess, a couple comments and questions. So on the professional learning side, I'm really supportive of all of the components that were included. I would request that if possible, and especially if it was done on a mandatory basis, that LGBTQ training for teachers and for other staff, if possible, be included in that. It's a dire need for, maybe it's not the majority of students, but for the students that are impacted by, just maybe a lack of knowledge or a lack of sensitivity to kind of changing norms around gender and sexuality, it's really, really hurtful. So I just really want to recognize that and remember hearing that directly as we did at a prior conference from our students. And so now, if we have the funding and the opportunity, I really would appreciate that inclusion. I'm excited about the idea of youth employment opportunities, especially if we can do something for our youth that both helps the district, helps the students, and increases their, lets them have a job or an ability to make money that increases their connection and engagement with academics, with learning, with school. I mean, I think that's a real win-win. So I did want to just ask for a little more explanation about what exactly you were thinking about the youth employment. Is that the high dose tutoring, or is that, can you just explain like a little more detail on that?
Sure. What we're thinking about is that we could partner with youth development and that we could offer, because we have funds, we could offer the funding and they could do the hiring. And we're looking at making connections both with during the academic day, because that CBO team, even though they're doing the enrichment in the afternoon, we've already worked with Director Carr about them also supporting that academic part of the day. So these youth employment opportunities, students could be helping in the beginning part of the day, which is academics, as well as those enrichment times for social emotional connection opportunities in the afternoons. And so we're looking at hiring them through the youth development team, but using our funding to be able to do that outreach.
I see. So it would be sort of assistance, like camp counselors, sort of a plus tutoring kind of idea. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, that sounds cool. I also wanted to suggest, I brought this up before in the fall, but I've been working with some community members around some ideas about youth peer mental health kind of and wellness support track. And I know some of our CBO partners also have ideas around a near peer program as well. That would be, someone a little older, but still kind of, relevant generationally and culturally to the students that could support them in mental health. And the idea around the peers would be that the youth would again be kind of employed or stipended to do some work around, advertising within our school systems about destigmatization of mental health, or coming up with ideas of events that they could do, or educational opportunities to just spread the word about mental health. So the idea of having a few of these per each comprehensive high school or something would be just a really cool way to spread that. So I hope to discuss that more and follow up to maybe have a conversation or meeting with the community-based groups that are thinking about this to see kind of if it might be a potential opportunity to support our youth. I really appreciate that the arts are included, and I would say arts are essential standards, and I think it's just a really good way to engage our students in. So I mean, if we can incorporate the arts even within our academics, I think that would be awesome. I think what exactly, I guess, will be decentralized by the site level? Because I know that there were several types, right? Like types. So I just want to be clear on, would that be a type of example that would be decided at the site level to incorporate kind of arts integration or something?
Yes, absolutely. But what we're thinking along the lines regarding decentralization of the budget going to the school designing based on their SIPSA and their needs in collaboration with their teachers, what that site needs. And so they absolutely can include art. They absolutely could do that.
Great. Well, that's awesome. Thanks. I guess, and I'll try to wrap up soon. Sorry to my colleagues. I had suggested like some audacious goals, that we adopt some audacious goals, with respect to the LCAP. I don't know, what exactly makes the most sense. There was talk around, having a 100% graduation rate, and and just what would it take to design our system around that goal. So I just wanted to recognize that summer is a way, if we did adopt an audacious goal like this, summer would be critical to realizing that. And as Member Garcia said, we have the opportunity to plan over the next 3 years at least. And I think we need to strategically plan for beyond that. You know, we don't know what it looks like, but it should be included in a subsequent LCAP to make sure that we keep going with it. And then finally, I just wanted to ask about like, what about, like, I feel like all of our students have suffered. Most of them have suffered academically. You know, a lot of them have, most all of them have suffered social, emotionally. And so I was just, you know, is there any way we would be in a position to do more for more students? I don't know how many we're thinking of serving through this model. It's very intensive. So I'm thinking about, you know, it's like an all or nothing, you know, versus is there a way to do something for all of our students or more of our students, or, you know, just kind of how are we thinking about that?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, Member Morowski. I want to ask Mr. Flores if he can put up slide number 6, just because slide number 6 really has a lot of detailed information that I want to touch on. The first that I will say, Member Morowski and board members, is that last bullet about making sure that we are working very closely with a group of research partners to develop a robust evaluation framework. And that will inevitably require us to have a conversation on, for example, the selection of our students. And we know that, and you can hear it from Chief Vieta in terms of our commitment to providing a robust schedule of assessments, because we need to have access to more information. Without it, we know that we have the EIIS data system where we can access information about engagement, attendance, behavior, and some level of academics. What we're not clear on right now, and we don't have a detailed answer, Member Morowski, is what would be the best approach for the identification of students. Further, I think what you're hearing from Chief Vieta is a commitment to try to identify how many students we believe would benefit from attending, for example, both of those sessions if we can plan that far in advance, and we can actually have 39 days of 39 instructional days. How do we identify students that we would want to pre-register, because we want to work with their families and say, we believe that this is what your students need. Once we have that information, then of course we will run data and we will come back to the board and say, we believe that that would require this number of staff that would be available for that. And I just want to go back to the last bullet, which is where I think the biggest threat exists. And that is, can we identify the number of staff given what Chief Vieta was talking about, and the tireless efforts and the level of tiredness and exhaustion in our system around this, that we would be asking for additional commitment on behalf of our students. And so it's a little bit difficult because we want to be very intentional, and we want to tie it to a very comprehensive research framework so that we can come back to the board. And as Member Garcia was reminding us, that, you know, this could potentially be a 3-year commitment with an improvement mindset. We don't have anything to improve if we don't do this right either. And so we want to make sure that, you know, whatever expenditure we make for this kind of program is one that we can report back. And as we've made a commitment, and that's why I think it's important that we at least decentralize from a SIPSA perspective, because the SIPSA work that we've been doing for the past 2 years has been with that in mind, that, you know, the investments that you make in your SIPSA at the local level have to tie back to student outcomes. And so that's what we would want to do at a district level. And I hope that we will get the board's support in engaging in a true research practice partnership. We've started some conversations with faculty and researchers from local institutions so that we can bring in their expertise and their independent interest in advancing a research agenda, but not allowing them just to parachute in and advance their research agenda, but rather that it be genuine and that it serve our community through community engaged scholarship. That, you know, they are doing it because they want to also improve outcomes for our community here in Sac City Unified. And so I just can't I can't emphasize enough that, you know, even though this is still at a high level, worth treating some of these as tights in our conversations here as a governance entity, that you would ensure and direct me not to make an expenditure for something like this without a robust evaluation framework to come back and report on how that investment paid off in the form of student outcomes.
Yeah, well, you certainly have my support for that, and I echo Member Garcia in emphasizing the importance of student assessments, interim assessments to do that. I guess just to follow on to the last point, like, I do feel like most of our students have lost something, right? And I've been talking about this deficit that, you know, we had kind of a surplus, or not a surplus, I mean, we broke even just about, but we had, you know, a deficit in what we were providing our students. That's why we saved money, right? They were not having sports, they were not having field trips, they were not having anything. We did not support with all of those things, right? So I feel like we should think about for summer, you know, absolutely we need to focus on, you know, getting the kids who have lost the most intensive help. I totally agree with that. But I hope we can have the capacity to think about beyond that, you know, can we run elementary sports for our students who want to participate? Because, you know, these sports leagues and stuff, they're kind of pricey. You know, not everyone can afford to do that in the summer. So, you know, and maybe we can work with city youth parks and enrichment to, you know, see what kind of programming we all can offer to make sure everyone has an opportunity to engage in all of the things they lost over that year. And also, you know, in thinking about kids like my son, who is like you know, a A+ kind of student before this pandemic and is like a BC student this year, like, that's pretty serious to me, you know, like he can achieve at this level. He's kind of like middling along, and I don't want that to continue. I want every student to be able to meet their potential, right? Like, I know his potential is higher. I have a hard time with him, you know, doing relatively poorly to what he was doing before. So I also want us to think about that, and maybe it's not a summer, you know, intensive program. Maybe it's like, you know, relevant workbooks or things that, you know, you could make sure you are bone up on, standard-based, you know, like something that parents could at least share with their kids over the summer to help them keep them on track and make sure that they did catch all the relevant standards. So just, you know, kind of outside the box of the summer school, but just thinking about other ways to support our kids. Thank you. Sorry to take so much time.
That's okay. Member Morowski and President Pritchett, I did want to, just because this is for us a moment in which we get to talk about where we would love to spend most of our days thinking about and talking about. So you'll hear some excitement, and that's probably why we're interjecting more often than usual. But I did want to just mention that, again, at a high level, we've started some level of conversations with our partners at the City of Sacramento. And what I have indicated is that what we wouldn't want to see is for our programs to compete against one another. And that, you know, in how we do outreach and how we do recruitment, that no one is framing it as, well, if you do this one, it'll be more fun than that one, those kinds of things. So when Chief Bieda talks about CBOs, I do think that I have a meeting on my schedule with folks at the City of Sacramento to figure out what are you thinking about in terms of summer programming, and how can we ensure that we're not competing for students, because as we build this research framework, we will be very intentional in the students that we would like to pre-register, And I wouldn't want those students to hear that we're pre-registering them because we think that the academic interventions, the social and emotional interventions are such that, they might want to pursue something that sounds like it's more fun, and instead really figure out how we can leverage our resources so that the schedule that we're thinking about is, you give us an opportunity for our educators who are experts in this work to make sure that they're doing what they do best, and then basically then allow our partners to do some of the work that they do best as well. But I just don't, I don't want to, and we're trying to stay ahead of this. I don't want to be in a position where where families and students feel like they want to choose one program over another. And so again, I know that I have a meeting on my schedule, and we've started those conversations. And I hope that because we're still in the beginning phases, that they might still be able to adapt to a goal of that type where we're not competing for students and trying to convince families that they really should be part of a summer program that we're conducting.
All right. Are there any other board member comments, questions? Student member Shake.
Thank you, Member Wu and President Pritchett. So, Ms. Vieta, thank you so much. From the beginning, the acknowledgement of learning loss is so important, right? We see just generational learning loss that we're going to have to be working on in the LCAP for the next 3 years and potentially further on with those groups like English learners. And so I do think making sure we frame everything around that is incredibly important. I'm also incredibly grateful for looking at stuff like the enrichment activities for a week, right? Member Morawski talks about students not reaching their potentials academically, and that's huge. We do need to work to that. But another problem is that so many of these kids will have not been around their peers and their friends for so long. And so just to be in an environment with other kids doing something fun for the first time in over a year, in almost, a year and a quarter, it's unimaginable, but it's something we absolutely have to do. I'd also like to speak to sort of Member Morawski's proposal with regards to youth supports stipended at school sites. The Met has quarterly exhibitions. For sophomores, we have these big things called gateways where they have to present a project and meet the school's learning goals. And so today I was sitting in in a gateway, and the student was presenting her project on, asking students like myself and everyone else at the school sort of their experience with the mental health provided at the school and at the district, sort of how much they wanted and how much they knew about and how much they've received. And time again, I think we've seen numerous studies in Sac City about this, is that we have a number of services out there, but bridging the gap between students on the site level and getting to those students to know about them and to allow them to have the option to sort of reach out to them rather than just maybe texting their friends or doing nothing about those issues. And so I would appreciate sort of an emphasis on mental health in a lot of things, but I absolutely agree with Member Morawski's proposal, sort of as we have this money right now to provide expanded learning opportunities and summer opportunities. But just thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank you, Student Member Shake. Is there any other board comments or questions? All right, seeing none, this is an informational item. Thank you again, Ms. Vieta.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate
Looking forward to more information. Okay. Wow, just in time. All right, item 8.0. Sorry, 8.1, 9.0, public comment. I believe we have 17 live public comments. Is that correct, Ms. Moretti?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, our board allows for 15 minutes for public comment. Since there's 17, we want to make sure we hear from each public commenter tonight. So we're going to allow 1 minute for each public commenter.
Our first public comment is from Allison French Toubeau.
Hello again.
Hello again. Just glad to see you all here. It's not quite great as being in person, but we're getting closer. I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work that's gone to get to where we are today. I don't want my criticisms to be taken as I don't appreciate the work that teachers and classified and UPE members and all the other many different people who are involved in the district moving forward. And also thank you to all the parents who have strived in whatever ways they can to support their kids through this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next comment is from Ingrid Hutchins.
Good evening again. I'm
Hi.
calling in this time just in my support for SEIU members. Although I'm not a member of their union, I'm really disturbed by the decision the district made this week for an impasse. If a district values their students, they do everything it takes to provide them with the best education possible. And to do that, we need to care about all the employees, not just the ones in the district office, but the ones who keep them fed, safe, and supported. School boards are set to serve an important purpose to our communities. They're tasked with being responsive to our values, beliefs, and priorities within our communities. And part of that role is to provide oversight. Please dig deep to uncover why the district has little interest in supporting the employees represented by our unions. It's not just one impasse. There have been numerous PERB rulings against the district. Why have you as a board not done much to investigate why this is happening? Ask the tough questions and don't accept the well-crafted answers supplied by attorneys. You aren't truly serving your community until you're allowing the numerous employment relations violations. You're not serving your community while you're allowing these numerous employment violations to go unchecked.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchins.
Thank you.
Our next public speaker is Julie Delagua.
Good evening, Ms. Delagua.
Hello. I just wanted to talk about the technology. I heard Mr. Aguilar talk about the challenges with missing parts, and a lot of that couldn't be predicted by the vendors. But what the district and the board does have control over is how you staff your IT department. Over a year ago, we were thrown into distance learning where everybody was thrown into a world of technology. Thousands of computers and devices were purchased across the district in different sites. However, the IT department was not expanded. However, they still now have to exponentially, increasingly increase their workload. And the 8 site techs are expected to cover 76 school sites with 4 times the amount of technology that has been purchased just in the recent year or year and a half. If you truly understand the value of technology and what that brings to education, you will show that value by hiring more site techs that can actually support teachers and support sites where they're not having to work 10, 12 hours a day of overtime and on holidays.
Thank you, Ms. Delagua. Please wrap it up.
It's an impossible task that you ask them to do in the timeline. And if you value technology and what it brings to our future, please grow this department in support of students and teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Delagua.
Our next speaker is Christian Tudor.
Ms. Tudor, are you with us?
Yes, good evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm the parent of an 8th grader at Kit Carson. I'm also a member of Kit's School Site Council, and I'm here to ask the board and district leaders to restore the necessary staffing levels to Kit in order to fulfill this board's commitment to protecting their IB curriculum. In February, I was here and I listened to several trustees suggest that the cuts to IB be taken off the table. And I listened and I watched with relief as this board voted to remove cuts to IB from the FRP. And yet, at last month's school site council meeting, we learned that Kit is facing a staffing cut down to, it's like 3.8 FTE being cut. Last night at a community meeting for Kit Carson, I listened to Trustee Garcia, Superintendent Aguilar, and Assistant Superintendent Schweitzer attempt to provide us with a rationale for this cut. We were told to be patient. We were told that things might change. But what I did not hear at last night's meeting was a commitment to uphold the board's decision not to make cuts to this program. The current staffing cuts mean that teachers trained to teach IB are going to be let go. This is such a waste of resources.
Thank you, Ms.
Hiring
Tudor.
teachers at the last minute is a waste. It's bad for teachers. It's bad for students. I
Thank-
want to hear tonight.
Thank you,
that
Ms.
you're
Tudor. Please wrap up your comments.
person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mary Kelly.
Hi there. Good evening. My son Owen is a ninth grader at Kit Carson. I'd like to share my thoughts as both a parent and an individual who has spent several years working in the education finance area. As a parent, we did not take lightly the decision to send Owen to Kit Carson as his high school. We toured schools, we researched programs, we even attended graduation ceremonies for various high schools. Owen's first choice was Kit Carson because, in his words, he liked the diversity. Following his lead, we decided to commit to the IB program at Kit Carson. What we didn't realize at that time that our multi-year commitment wasn't matched by the board and the district's commitment to the IB program, and that we would already be forced to consider the decision of where he should finish his high school as potential cuts that would eliminate or severely impact the IB program at Kit have been discussed. As the executive officer of the Education Audit Appeals Panel, I deal with education issues. I understand tough budgetary decisions. I talk to superintendents with CBOs. I understand the threat of a receivership, but I also understand that a key component of good fiscal management is the long-term vision that you cite on your website. The district several years ago decided to commit resources to convert an underperforming middle school with low enrollment. The board invested.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Could you please wrap up your comments?
This is not the time to reduce the funding to Kit Carson. This is the time to recommit to the IB program so they can continue to grow the program, to increase their enrollment, and to grow the success of the students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
The next speaker is Mo Kashmiri.
Hi there, Mo Kashmiri. I'm speaking on behalf of the Sac City Parents and Caregivers Union Group. Just as of 3 hours ago, we've collected 1,153 signatures on a petition in the middle of a pandemic asking you to support 4th R. Parents want a choice. They were never surveyed about whether we need care now or can wait until 4th R is stood up. 4th R is a public asset that Sacramento wants expanded, not gutted. Depending on the care and program offered by 4th R. Haven't they suffered enough? We want you to work to help 4th R return. The new close program isn't close to being ready anyway. Let's wait for 4th R. 4th R is vital to our children's social and emotional health and is a trusted partner for our children's care and education. It's a fee-based program that families pay for. It's not costing the district any money. So let parents be part of the decision-making on who and where care will be provided. Don't make a decision this core to our day-to-day life without engaging us and no notice. 4th R at most sites is waitlisted in a normal year. Instead of shutting down this asset and giving it to a nonprofit, expand all our options and offer both in all schools more.
Thank you, Mr. Kashmiri.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rich Vasquez.
Good evening, Superintendent, members of the board. Again, that's great. We're getting our schools open and stuff. That's good. But again, I feel like a broken record because again, some of these school sites, I mean, and what's the reality? They're failing. Again, I lived your system. I have a senior and a sophomore. I mean, sports, music, arts programs. How do we replicate Phoebe Hearst and Crocker? Why do everyone's, the well-off, knowledgeable keep trying to flee to those sites and how do I live in Oak Park and my neighborhood school is Tahoe Park? Why am I going into someone else's neighborhood to fill up their school because the people in that neighborhood don't even want to go to their own school? I mean, come on, man. This is the system I live in. Continuous failure. Again, the resolutions, how are we going to strengthen the ethnic studies? These teachers are saying that you're not providing anything for them. Start having, funding for these type of programs and stuff. These teachers are working their butts off. They're trying to make the changes, but you can't do it alone. We need your system to get better. Again, your system's failing. So what? We're going back to school. We're going back to failing sites. Please understand that. Understand that we're going back to failure. Quit accepting failure in this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez.
Our next speaker is Rose McAuliffe.
Hello, I'll save my comments to when it's time for the district advisory committees to speak. I'm representing the CAC.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Shannon Hobbs.
Hello. The 4th R program has been a partner with the Sacramento City School District for over 35 years, providing quality childcare. 4th R is more than just a childcare program. It creates community at its sites. It keeps children develop long-lasting relationships, and they keep learning in the summer. So much that former children of the program come back to work for it once they turn 18. Some of you board members know how quality of a program this is because you send your own children there. How are you okay with the decision you made to terminate this program? The coordinators and programmers for the 4th R program stepped up in the school district's time of need to staff learning hubs. They couldn't wait to welcome the families back once the schools reopened. This was taken away from them in a blink of an eye. Please consider the staffing the learning hubs with substitute teachers so the coordinators and programmers can get back to their real job. This new program isn't even going to be ready till the summer. We are willing to wait until the summer for 4th R. We need continuity and consistency, not chaos. Please cancel the contract with the new program and reinstate 4th R. We want 4th R back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hobbs.
The next speaker is Sean D'Alessandro.
Sean, I believe you're on mute. Sean, I believe that you're on mute. Are you able to unmute yourself? There you go.
Yes, thank you. That
You're
just appeared. I
welcome.
apologize. I am speaking with you this evening as a 36-year veteran of the SCUSD School District, and 29 of those years have been at Kit Carson. 6 years of hard work, curriculum design, student recruitment, the entire staff being trained, and a $3 million school renovation later, we know we are on the road to success. Student achievement is improving, and then the enrollment has doubled. We know our work is not done. Because of this, I am asking you to reconsider the drastic cuts to KCIA staffing. By removing 3.8 teachers, the effectiveness of our IB program will be gutted. The district's proposed master schedule will increase the number of student contacts for 18 teachers from 170 up to 204. Teachers cannot be expected to provide the rigorous and challenging curriculum that our students deserve, as well as providing the one-on-one advisory role for the extended essay, personal projects, and community activity service. Our students and their families have chosen to attend KCIA for the rigorous and global educations. Parents want the small high school experience where the staff members actually know their child. If equity means meeting students' needs, not simply doing the same for all students, shouldn't that be translated to schools as well?
Thank you. Please wrap up your comments.
Only SCUSD school with a board-approved 7-period day, shouldn't that warrant an exception when determining staffing?
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Terrence Gladney, and this is the final speaker that is online.
Okay, thank you.
When I was growing up, my mom was a single mom, and we moved a lot. Obviously, she was trying to find us better locations to live. And I can tell you that moving sucks. But what sucks even more than moving is the friend that shows up when all the boxes have been loaded on the truck to either eat or ask, do we need help with the last box? I was on school site at my elementary school on Wednesday, helping to make sure that the teachers were ready to go. And I felt it was really disingenuous to show up today and see a news crew and our superintendent standing in front of the school, lifting up in front of the cameras the preparation that happened. Don't show up in your suit if you didn't roll your sleeves up to do the work. Our students were there, and they shouldn't have to worry about seeing news cameras. If this news cameras show up, that's fine, but they should see their teachers, their principal, people who know them. That should have been the focus, is our kids. We're talking about highlighting kids, but we have news cameras to do interviews to show work that happened in spite of unboxed technology equipment. Cameras that are literally balancing on a tripod with no screw, which actually is a safety hazard. Me supporting the teacher that was there because we don't have enough staff, although we've known for months, over a year, that we don't have enough staff. There's talk of hiring an outside company as a contracting agent to do the work. Our teachers should not have to spend their entire week before they return to in-person learning or a concurrent model worrying about technology. And just one more thing, there's a couple items on the agenda that weren't available for public comment requests, so I'll just raise my hand when those come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gladney. All right. Item 10.0, public hearing. 10.1, public hearing, first reading of revised board policy 3155, relations with the vendors. Mr. Bozio?
Good evening again, President Pritchett, Board of Education, Superintendent Aguilar. I think our team is working on, there we go. Thank you, team. I'm back before you tonight to present to you a first reading of a revision to Board Policy 3155, relations with vendors. This revision is required by federal law to CFR 200.318C1, which states that school districts are required to have written standards of conduct covering conflicts of interest and governing the actions of its employees engaged in the selection, award, and administration of contracts. The standards must provide for disciplinary actions to be applied for violations of such standards by officers, employees, or agents of the LEAs. This policy 3155 was originally adopted in 1998 and revised in 2001. The policy was cited by our recent FPM review conducted by CDE, the Federal Program Monitoring Review, noted this lack within this policy of any language around the potential discipline to be faced by employees should they violate this conflict of interest provision in working on engaging and participating in the selection and award of any contract. So as a result of that finding by FPM, and to clear that finding, we have revised the policy to include language around if such a conflict of interest would arise when the district employee has a financial interest or other interest in a tangible personal benefit for a firm considered for a contract, any employee in violation of this policy shall be subject to disciplinary action consistent with the federal regulations cited above. Of course, apart from employees, which the district can discipline directly, just for your information, related, we have, of course, the board bylaw 9270 that is brought before the board for revision every 2 years, as is required by the County of Sacramento, required by state law, the Fair Political Practices Act, and the board recently reviewed and revised and adopted that revision to bylaw 9270 earlier this year. So with that, I will wrap up the presentation and take any questions from the board.
Thank you, Mr. Bozio. I believe we have one live comment.
Yes, we have one live comment from Allison French-Toubeau.
Welcome back, Ms. French-Toubeau.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say I'm pleased to see this policy, and I'm sure board members who, if they take a moment to look at, are a little shocked that this wasn't already here. I know you guys have a lot of balls in the air that you're juggling, but this definitely seems the type of policy to take a look at. I know there's other concerns too about how the district can make awards to vendors without much of a public announcement of who the candidates are, but that's not this policy. I hope there's another one coming about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Board discussion, Member Wu.
On the front of the board policy 3155.
Oh, it's a typo. Correct. The correct number is 3315.
Oh, yeah, it says 3155 through the whole thing.
We'll make sure that that's right. And we're going to bring this back to you for a second read before your actual action in adopting the revision. So thank you for the catch, and we'll definitely correct that.
Great catch, Member Wu. It's that attorney in you, I know. All right, is there Member Phillips?
Board members are not employees of the.
Oh, Member Phillips, can you please, yeah, there you go.
Microphone, sorry. Board members are not employees of the district, or are they?
Correct. No, board members are not employees of the district. So the policy wouldn't really, in terms of the disciplinary nature, that wouldn't really apply to the board. As I mentioned, there's the separate board bylaw, 9270, which is much more detailed, in depth, outlines various conflicts of interest under the numerous different statutes, outlines what's prohibited, and any sort of repercussions and so forth that would ensue.
Is there any way to reference in this document that there's also for the governing board members that they fit in this?
There's a cross-reference in the policy. It does reference, I believe, 9270 as a CF. I have it in front of me here somewhere.
It's at the bottom of page 1.
I lost my yes.
Board bylaw 9270, updated in 2020 concerning conflict of interest provides an relevant part. And there's a whole section.
So the reference to conflict of interest 9270 is specifically for governing board members.
It is. It's primarily it certainly applies most primarily to governing board members and other high-ranking officials in the district, superintendent, chiefs, and so forth. But it sets out there's different levels of prohibitions and conflicts, the highest level being the board and the superintendent, and then there's, other levels below that.
Okay, just wasn't as clear as I guess it was to me. So I see that it's there. It's just
absolutely, and we can send a BC or to the board for the board to review the 9270 as well. It was recently revised earlier this year and approved by the county. 9270.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Posey, maybe we should bring that back as 9270. Maybe we should bring the 9270 back as an update then, since it was revised.
It had, the board already approved it.
Oh, okay,
earlier
gotcha.
this,
I understand
yes,
what you're saying. Okay.
in December, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
approved so many of them.
Yeah.
Member Garcia, did you have your hand? Member Rhodes, you had your hand up? No. Okay.
It was
Gotcha.
2020. This
Okay.
school year. You're right. This school year. But
yes. All right.
I
Are there
do-
any other questions? Or Member Garcia and the Member Sheik?
Thank you. So I did want to follow up on the comments from Board Member Phillips. So if this particular section doesn't apply to the governing board, there is language in here that's still the very first sentence, no district employee or governing board member. So shouldn't that be stricken?
well, we can look at that. It's repetitive of what's in the bylaw 9270. But that's a true statement that no district employee or governing board shall accept personal gifts. The edits that were made, the red line is the addition that's new. The policy was in existence, and then the new is the red line. And the piece that the FPM required we add specifically had to do with the ability to, the specific reference to discipline for an employee. And that's what we had to add. Even though we would have always had the ability to discipline our employees for violating a policy or or behaving as such.
Okay.
But they wanted it, they required that it be explicitly stated that we in this policy, that a violation could lead to discipline of an employee.
Okay, and then just for clarification, just to make sure that I understood you correctly. So the governing board is not an employee of the district. So is the superintendent an employee of the district, or is he an employee
yes.
of the, okay. So it starts with the superintendent and everyone underneath. So it's just the board who are not employees of the district. And they have their own conflict of interest section that we just updated in December.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
thank you.
Member Shake.
Thank you. Okay, so I understand why we're striking the third mention of governing board, because discipline wouldn't be appropriate in the way that's outlined here. And I understand why we're keeping the first one in. It's a factual statement. So I guess there's a second mention of it here, which we're striking. Such a conflict of interest would arise when the district employee or governing board member has a financial or other interest in or a tangible personal benefit for a firm considered for a contract. Why are we striking that one if we're not striking the first?
I just want to be clear, because it is confusing, the way the draft that you were given. It probably wasn't what we should have included in the packet. That entire section is brand new language. So what you're seeing there is two different people having put language in, and one person striking out what the other person put as unnecessary. So it's all new language. That wasn't existing language about the governing board. It was just, while we were preparing the new language, we determined that we didn't need that reference, and it wouldn't be appropriate or applicable to talk about discipline of a governing board member. So when we presented it, those shouldn't even really be there, if that makes sense. But nevertheless, that was our intent, is to and that's what was required by the FPM review, to address employee discipline.
Got it. No, that totally makes sense.
Does that make sense? It's super confusing, and we didn't even realize it showed up like that way until.
No, definitely. Just looking at the strike throughs, it makes it confusing. But thank you. That's super helpful.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other board comments or questions? Okay, this is a conference and first reading, so we'll be bringing this back, and then it'll be fixed in the next board agenda.
We'll clean it up so it looks a little bit neater.
Okay, great. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
All right. Item 11.0, Communications Employee Organizations Report. SCTA is first on the list, and per an email from SCTA, Article 18, which allows them 15 minutes. They'll be reporting on 4 items. And in their notes, the contract allows us 15 minutes to shall not exceed 15 minutes for all items. We'd also like to remind you that Article 18 also states employee organizational reports shall be placed among the first 3 categories on the board's agenda at a regular board meeting. SCTA.
Thank you, President Pritchett. However, David Fisher is not currently online. We also have a report tonight from SEIU, and Dan Shallock is online.
Okay, we will go on to SEIU. Thank you. Hi, Mr. Shallock, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. SEIU's report is not a happy one. Many of our members have had to report to work this week without a safe and ratified agreement. The board members who voted to give the superintendent and his contracted negotiator the authority to declare the illegal impasse should be ashamed of themselves. Our members have a legal right to return to work with a safe and ratified contract. But instead, what does our district do? They declare an illegal impasse so they can impose the return to work on our members. Does that sound like respect for these employees? We're talking about the same employees who are serving meals to kids and dealing with COVID outbreaks on their ranks in the early stages of the pandemic. These are our special education aides, our bus drivers, clerks, office managers, all our support staff. You know, in negotiations, our differences were not that great. Financially speaking, other classified groups and surrounding areas have received the same or better. But money was not the big issue that has divided us. It has been health and safety. It is 16 hours of vaccination leave for a small but vulnerable group of our employees, frequently women of color. It's about ensuring consistent 6-foot distancing in all places, much like the 6-foot distancing I believe the board is utilizing right now off the dais. It's about properly fitted N95 masks for a small group of employees who need them without a complicated process that might leave them unprotected in the next 10 weeks. And yes, it is about childcare. SEIU's negotiation team has had to basically bargain with itself by coming up with idea after idea on how to solve this real issue. And the district did a great job of saying no to everything we offered, but rarely had anything helpful to contribute. We are not in the business of childcare, was what we were frequently told. You know, when wildfires raged across California, we didn't shame the people who lost their homes. COVID has left many people with no options they can afford. You know, now one idea we proposed was using Sac City's own laid off staff who already are fingerprinted and background checked and utilizing existing buildings. But no, okay. We offered a cost neutral option by utilizing the FMLA and the Federal Rescue Act. No, okay. We suggested letting some of our most affected staff continue to work from home for the 10 weeks until summer is over and the childcare landscape might get easier. No. And lastly, we suggested a small weekly stipend to help those most in need with underage children to offset the skyrocketed cost of childcare. We didn't even get a response to that last idea. What we don't want is a single parent in our district to have to choose to leave their child home alone or abandon their job. It is our sincere hope that the district will return to the table and settle a safe agreement for its SEIU members. But having said that, SEIU is dedicated to making their collective voice heard and standing up for their members who were disregarded by this imposed a return and illegal impasse. Time is critical, and I implore the board to demand a safe and ratified contract for its SEIU members as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Shalik. Do we still not have SCT on the line?
No, I do not see David Fisher online.
Okay, and TCS, Teamsters, and UPE, we do not have a report from them?
No, no report.
Okay, item 11.2, District Advisory Committees. I believe we have 2 live comments, correct? But we'll go into the reports first. CAC?
Yes, we have Kenya Martinez, but I'm sorry. We have Rose McAuliffe for CAC.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi,
Good evening.
Rose.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Aguilar. I'm here representing the district's Special Education Community Advisory Committee. My name is Rose McAuliffe. I'm the CAC's treasurer. I've combined my time with that of our parliamentarian, Kenya Martinez, to have sufficient time to read our committee's prepared statement. Have 2 items to discuss tonight. 1, the status on overdue special education assessment, and 2, the sudden closure of the 4th-hour care program. 1, status on overdue special education assessment. Although we are happy that an MOU is in place with our labor partners to resume assessments, the district is behind on completing assessments for our students. We understand that an estimated 100 assessments have been completed of the total 831 that were pending as of the February 2021 board packet. 420 were outstanding for initial assessments and 431 for outstanding triennial assessments. Assessments are the gateway access to services. Without assessments, students do not receive services. We come to you, superintendent and board members, to show if you could provide a written corrective plan that shows what action can be taken to expedite this mandated service to our students. Additionally, for purposes of openness and transparency, weekly status updates on the district's website under the special education page showing the number of assessments completed and still outstanding. 1 month into this process, 100 out of 850 have been completed, 12%. It's short of the 20% that has been requested of us by the CDE. Please bring in contracted vendors to expedite this much needed work for the benefit of our students to be able to receive a free, appropriate public education. Item 2, it was brought to our attention that the 4th-hour program would cease to exist in our district and that another provider would come in and provide these services. We are not clear on the details on the how nor the why this decision was made. What we do know for sure is that parent input and parent involvement was not part of this major decision affecting our kids. For purposes of continuity and for a child's mental health, going back to school after being away for over a year is a big change. The Fourth R program has been in existence in Sac City Unified for over 35 years and continues in other districts. A decision like this is not one that would have been taken lightly. This is a huge disservice to students, and especially to students with disabilities who need continuity. If Fourth R wasn't able to get ready for another 6 weeks, we would have liked to have had and provided input on that decision point and potentially even waited for the 6 weeks for Fourth R. Parents and students are the largest stakeholder in this decision, and yet they were not invited to the table. The parent community of students with disabilities have asked us to request of you for improved communication. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a live comment for DLAC.
We do, no, we have,
Oh, for LCAP,
for
correct?
LCAP, we have Vanessa Ariza King.
Okay. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi. Good evening, Superintendent Aguilar, President Pritchett, and board members. This is exciting speaking with all of you this evening, knowing the district successfully had its first in-person back-to-school day. Thank you, Superintendent, board members, teachers, administrators, district employees, and so many others that played a role in making this day possible. On behalf of the LCAP Parent Advisory Committee, I want to express how grateful we were to have the opportunity to share with all of you during the special board meeting on March 11th. Several members of the LCAP PAC signed a letter to Superintendent Aguilar expressing our hope to have similar opportunities on a regular basis in the future to interact with the board. Our goal and focus are on doing the best we can to bring up to the board barriers, concerns, strengths, and opportunities we are hearing and seeing in the community. We believe opportunities for more in-depth engagement like the special board meeting on March 11th would facilitate a process of checking in as a district on how we are doing collectively towards meeting the LCAP goals. During the most recent PAC meeting, we discussed our support for the idea of having audacious goals for our district. In particular, the committee discussed the idea of making our college and career readiness goal more audacious. PAC members discussed too many accounts they have heard of young graduates leaving high school without structure or a plan for what life after high school will mean for them, either academically or financially. The PAC discussed the need for every single student in SCUSD to graduate with a written post-secondary plan and an understanding of the steps needed to achieve that plan, whether the plan is enrolling into college, applying for an internship, apprenticeship program, or obtaining employment for job skills and professional development. During our meeting, the PAC also continued our discussion and concern around the opt-in culture that exists for some professional development and implementation of district programs. The PAC has identified this as a key barrier to achieving equitable outcomes for students and achieving the district's goals. The PAC would like to see an elimination of opt-in clauses in future contracts wherever possible in addressing professional development. We understand that true and effective change has to take place in the roots and the nitty-gritty of something to be most effective. But we believe the district also needs to set a tone and actively push towards a culture in this district of excellence, inclusion, trauma-informed, and strengths-based. This is the baseline culture we want to establish at SCUSD, and therefore should not be something we can opt in or opt out of. PAC recommendations include establishing metrics and accountability to provide more data on the extent of training, thus assisting us in better understanding the impact of our proposed actions and rationale for why some are choosing to opt out of trainings. This might enable us to identify additional barriers and to effectively address those barriers. In upcoming weeks, the PAC will be meeting to further discuss the draft LCAP and develop additional recommendations. Upcoming meetings include Monday evening, April 12th and April 26th. Thank you, as always, for your time, your work, and your commitment to make SCUSD a district for our children to grow and thrive in. And a quick side comment, PAC member Mr. Frank D. Young was unable to join me this evening to give the report, but he sends his warmest regards to all of you. So thank you again, and good night.
Please tell him we missed him tonight.
Well,
All right. Student Advisory Council, Student Member Sheikh, do you know if we have anything from?
Yeah, I'll share a couple
Okay,
things.
thank you.
Primarily that applications are out to principals for the next year's cohort of student advisory councils and for this seat right here. Or hopefully that seat by then. The student board member, student advisory council packets are out, and a huge problem we've had in the prior years is sort of that the packets will sit on the principal's desk or sit at a table that no one sees. And so I wanted to make an appeal to everyone listening. If you're a school site staff or anyone else, please try and reach out to the students that you know that would be interested in trying and advocating for some change in this district, whether as a delegate on the council or as student board member. We want to really get those applications up. And so that's what I'll say for the SAC.
Great reminder. Thank you for that. 11.3, Superintendent's Report.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh,
We
yes.
did have one public comment on 11.2 from Terrence Gladney.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that. Oh, I apologize about that. Mr. Gladney?
Hey, I'm here. Yeah, it's all good. When I coach, whether it's track, basketball, whatever sport, right? You know, the first minute sort of define the tone of the game. If you're the most physical team in basketball, you're probably going to get more calls. Um, you know, and I think that the way that we agendize our board meetings sort of should reflect our priorities. I think it should start with student, you know, so the stellar student should be there. Student advisory committee should probably be next because we're starting at the student, and then probably parent advisory committees, then teachers, because those are people that reflect what is happening on the ground. We often see our board members either disengaged or complaining about the time of meetings, but we only have 2 opportunities per month to engage you guys. But yet, you know, we sit here with you all till sometimes 1, 2. I've sat as late as 3 o'clock in the morning, and then we get time cut short to 2 minutes to to reflect our feelings and thoughts on all of this work that's happening. We see board members take 10, 15 minutes, or staff go over 30 minutes, and then we see complaints about the time and how late meetings are running. Share in our passion for this work, and I'm not asking that you guys do it every time, but for those parent groups that are committing their time, they shouldn't have to wait to the end of a meeting to share their thoughts and what they see on behalf of their students. Because before they're your students, they're their students and their children and their people, and they have lives. And we should honor that with our actions and, with the way that we lay things out. I think that that's just the greatest sign of respect we could show. Put parents and students first, and then teachers and everyone else on the school site, and then build up to the centralized ideas from the staff who are actually the furthest away from the kids and what is happening on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Mr. Gladney. All right. Was there any other public comment?
No, that was the final comment.
Okay. Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, President Pritchett, and just echoing that last public comment, and in light of the fact that we are an hour ahead of schedule, I am going to be as brief as I can. First, I want to just acknowledge, and as we've heard from a lot of our board members and a lot of our community members about focusing on the positive, I want to certainly recognize again that today we finally returned together after more than a year of distance learning. And I know that many of you as board members were out and about visiting your school sites, as well as sometimes stopping by school sites of some of our colleagues as well. I had the opportunity over the past several days to visit a number of our elementary schools. Today I visited, I think, 6 or 7 of them. And I could tell you that if I had a superpower to see through masks, there was a lot of smiles in the faces of our students and in the faces of many of our families. And it was evident at every one of our school sites that countless hours were put into by many of our staff members to prepare for this day. And of course, that work certainly paid off. Our families were not only excited and happy, they knew about the health and safety protocols. I had the opportunity to visit schools at the beginning of session when they were parking their cars. I was able to visit schools as students were picking up their grab and go lunches as well. And I can tell you that there's no way that parents were not able to appreciate the disciplined approach to make sure that we put in place health and safety protocols to maintain a safe learning environment for all of our students. I could see from the outside, the blacktops, how students were standing away from one another. Our principals and our teachers got very creative in how they managed that process. I was able to visit John Bidwell during a recess break and was able to see how students were doing recess. Yes, a little bit different than what they're used to, and they were curious and trying to figure out how to conduct themselves. But as we know, our young children and our youth are very resilient and sometimes can teach us how to adapt better than I think some of us can as adults as well. I was able to walk past classrooms. In some cases, I had the honor of being able to enter into classroom space to hear our wonderful educators provide engaging and interactive instruction for distance learning, sometimes very creatively because of some of the challenges that have been spoken about. And I just want to talk about, as we embarked on this adventure together, I have continued, and I did so this morning as often as I could, to ask for grace from our community and our families. Everything that we've done this year has been new. Concurrent instruction is new. The use of technology for concurrent instruction is new. And so I will continue to ask that. I know that it may get old and tired, but I just want to remind our entire community that this is entirely new to us. And I hope that, you know, all of the bugs and everything that didn't work as we would have wanted will certainly begin to see some refinements over the next few days. We know that the next few days will still see some hiccups in how we manage things, but by and large, I just want to say thank you to all of our staff who have leaned in and rolled up their sleeves and said, you know, things are going to work out, and we're here for our students and our families. With that, I also want to extend, we heard earlier today a report on and your vote on the ratification of the UPE MOU. I also want to thank our other labor partners, Teamsters Local, TCS as well, as we reached an MOU around our reopening. And we heard, and I want to be respectful of that, we do have MOUs with 4 out of our 5 labor partners, and we will stay committed to making sure that we can reach 5 MOUs for each of our labor partners as well. You also heard earlier, and I want to just acknowledge all of the hard work that was already done, but really the hard work that is in front of us for thinking about what happens in the summer. This morning I was asked by someone, what are we thinking about for the fall? And I interrupted and said, before the fall, there's the summer. And we're very committed to making sure, as you heard today, to ensure that we are thinking outside the box, but also in a way in which we can demonstrate the commitment from this board to always make sure that we're vigilant around our expenditures, and they have to be tied, as we have talked about for several years, to student outcomes. Also want to just talk about and acknowledge and thank our staff as we continue to promote vaccinations throughout our entire community. For our students, starting very soon, we've already started with a set of our students. But the civic commitment on our part, on the board's part, tomorrow, we will make use of CERNA again for another vaccination clinic. We are somewhat a bit anxious today because people are going to come in and we're going to remove tables and we're going to bring in some more chairs because in less than, or in about 8 hours or so, or a little bit, about 12 hours from now, there are going to be community members that are going to be taking advantage of our commitment for the use of CERNA in South Sacramento to make sure that we are impacting and having these benefits to our most impacted communities as well. To date, and we will send more information to our board, but to date we have provided nearly 5,000 vaccinations for community members outside of those vaccinations that we have provided to our employees. Next week, we will be providing, in partnership with Dr. Rusty Yoshida from Urgent Care Now, over 4,000 vaccinations in a single day at Luther Burbank High School. We hope, and we've expressed to as many partners, that we want to do this at as many of our school sites as possible. I wish we controlled all of those decisions. We don't. But what we've been clear about is that we are very open to sharing our sites for the benefit of our community. Finally, I know that this was a big topic for the board, a big topic for many of our community members. We will continue to look at CDPH guidance, which is allowing for distancing that is shorter than our current 6-foot physical distancing that we're operating now. And we will continue to provide feedback updates to our board and to our community. Again, staying on the positive, next week we will continue to welcome back another group of students for EK through 3rd, and at the same time we will also welcome back our 4th through 6th grade students. And I know that Member Garcia and Member Morowski and I saw Member Rhodes. I said to Member Rhodes, his children are young enough that they smile when they see him at schools. My kids' reactions are different. I think Member Villa, your reactions are different as well, but mine are a bit different. My 6th grade daughter will start her school, her group next week as well. So. And then, of course, we have our secondary. So there's a lot to celebrate over the next few weeks. I hope that we can continue to balance the positive nature of what we're doing, but also lean in for those aspects of our work where there's still a bit of tension. And let's treat it as somewhat creative and constructive conflict, but keep our eyes centered on why we're here, which is to benefit more students to experience in-person instruction. So with that, I'll defer back to you, President Pritchett.
Thank you, Superintendent. All right, item 11.4, President's report. It sounded like we had like the same playbook almost. I was over here scratching stuff out. This is a very exciting week for our district with many of our students stepping back onto campus. And just want to say thank you to all of the hardworking staff that made this possible. I received many text messages and pictures and phone calls today of just very excited community members and kids. And they all had just a wonderful day. As we open up our doors this week, I just, as the superintendent said, that we just ask for grace and patience as our teachers and our staff are trying to navigate to best serve our children. We will get through this together, we promise. I'm very excited to report, as the superintendent had also stated.
Whew. Thank you, everyone.
That was a fantastic report. All right, well, with that official request for a resolution, I would like to request that you work with our legal counsel, Ms. Collins, and also Ms. Bieda, and then bring it to the board at a future board meeting.
I'm looking forward to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for working on it. Right. Item 11.6, information sharing by board members. Anyone? Member Vila, member.
Go ahead. Just again, another small tidbit. I just wanted to say thank you to our wonderful food service program. I sent a message to the board today, seeing all of the kids come out of their class and leaving today with full food for their lunch and for breakfast. And my daughter was extremely happy, and I heard so many kids telling their parents, I got pizza today and I got apple slices. So I want to thank you for that work because it was flawless. The information on the bag with the QR codes were very easy to figure out. So it was very helpful for all of our students today. So thank you for all of the work on that.
Thank you. Member Garcia?
Yeah, so first I want to start off with a very positive note. I did have the opportunity to stop at 3 school sites today. I did run into Board Member Villa at one of them, but it was just the energy. I mean, the energy from everyone. It wasn't just about the kids being happy. I did, I did volunteer taking temperatures at one site, managing the line at another site, doing a site tour at another site. But one thing I did notice is that as much as this meant for our children, I saw teachers and principals with big smiles. I saw parents with big smiles. So it just filled my heart today to really be around so much excitement and so much positivity. And things were not perfect, but it was their first day back. And I heard stories about colleagues helping each other in their classrooms, helping set, looking for for the screwdrivers or the screws that needed to be for. So there was a lot of support within school sites. I talked with Maria, who had a very perfectly and beautifully lined table of all the lunches and bags. And so this was an effort that involved so many people. And I just want to express my deep appreciation from the bottom of my heart to everyone, from district staff to school site staff to the parents who volunteered to make this first day as exciting as possible. So I just wanted to start off with that because it was just so good. And I was just very, very happy. So I know that as adults, we crave that as well. I did want to move into a couple of public comments. One, I want to maybe touch very quickly on ethnic studies. I know that the State Board of Education recently adopted a model curriculum for ethnic studies. I know that our district is one of the few districts in the state that already has ethnic studies as a requirement for graduation. Just wondering if there's maybe a way to see how our curriculum sort of matches or not with the model curriculum. There is also going to be an opportunity, hopefully, in the governor's state budget for funding for professional development. So I heard that there was a need for that. So I want to make sure that we don't miss out on those opportunities. But even if that funding isn't available, how can we better support this program? And I would like to do the same thing with civic engagement. So that curriculum has been approved. So, I know that work happens through the youth development. So just wondering if there's an opportunity to work on that. And I also want to touch bases on the 4th R issue. This has been an issue that somehow took a left turn somewhere. And full disclosure, I have been a consumer of 4th R, my kids, for the past 6 years. And I'm just a big supporter of the 4th R program. So, Superintendent, I think it's important for you to give us a status of maybe where we're at with that, and then depending on what you share, I do have a request, if appropriate, depending on what you share.
Sure thing. And Member Garcia, I just want to acknowledge on the comment about civic engagement and the state's effort for a seal around civic engagement. Student Board Member Sheikh has been engaged in that and has requested information from our staff. And I think there's a meeting, Student Board Member Sheikh, I think with Director Kingston, Linda Kingston on that, because we are actively engaged in that. So we certainly can bring an update on that. On the 4th R, I hear you in terms of your description of it. This has been a topic that has taken a lot of deserved time and energy. You may remember that as we were talking about thinking about reopening, I began to receive, and I know that board members received from constituents, a lot of inquiries about if you're coming back 2 days a week and you're coming back for 3 hours during those sessions, how can we still take advantage of childcare programs so that we can still meet our own demands and still be able to have our children participating in that. And I am certain that the number of students that we are serving through our in-person program has been impacted by 4th R, and the fact that our families don't have access to something that you spoke about, that you've been sending your own children, Member Garcia. I feel like I do, because we haven't discussed it in a board meeting. As a lot of information was being shared, I did work very closely with our partners at the City of Sacramento. We have put out information that I think we both agree is truthful about what led us to sit with potential CBOs and discuss whether or not it would be a possibility that we continue to meet the needs of those families that were sending inquiries to us as we were thinking about reopening. And I don't want to provide details there. I mean, we've issued that. I know there's a lot of information out there. Some of it I think is not accurate, and I'll just leave it at that. But I will say that through discussions, we identified SAC Chinese, longtime partner of the district. I think the city has also worked with that CBO. I think the partnership with us is over 20 years old. They provide services currently through our learning hubs and through other sites as well. And we made a decision to explore the possibility of having SAC Chinese provide those services to our families. We also worked with the city and started to talk about the use of portables that they either operate through ownership, through lease agreements, those kinds of things that sit on our campuses, as you know. Those conversations are still taking place at the moment in terms of what that arrangement might look like. Long-term leases or just handing those facilities to us, for example, so that we can make use of them since they already sit on our sites. One of the complicating factors, which we really don't control and can't control, is things related to licenses. SAC Chinese has licenses to provide this kind of service, but there are requirements that you must obtain licenses for serving individual schools. And those licenses are not transferable. It's not like the 4th R run by the city could just say, oh, here's my license, go ahead and start serving those same schools. So we have to go through that process. SAC Chinese has to go through the process of obtaining those licenses. That inevitably is going to delay their ability to take on that role that they said that they were willing to take on. We are working very closely with them to also make sure that they understand the facilities that they would be using. They're committed to obtaining permits that just as other organizations use our facilities and going through that process, of course. But that aspect is one that we really can't speed up. It's not one that we can just immediately say, go ahead and start doing it, and we'll just deal with licenses later on. Of course, that's not something that we would want to put ourselves in terms of liability and risks, as you can imagine. So we have, for the moment, talked about in terms of timing. They believe that this would be something that's available to our community in early May. Again, I wish it could happen today, but it's not something that we, again, have control over. What we think is that given this long-standing partnership, we think that SAC Chinese could be successful at providing this service to our community. But I have read many of the public comments. We all heard some of the public comments. And I know that there seems to be a great interest in our community related to 4th R. Unlike you, I only know about 4th R because I know that they serve many of our families and that it's a needed service that our families have depended on. I've heard wonderful stories about adults who went through that program, and so I'm certainly not here to make judgment about which programs are better, and but I also have faith that as we were trying to focus on bringing a solution to those families that inquired about it, that we feel that this is a viable one. It's just that the timing is not one that that will satisfy some of the needs that our families have immediately. That's how I would describe the status, Member Garcia, unless you have specific questions about any further details.
So there's no final decision, there's no MOU that's been signed?
Well, there is, our staff are working with city staff in terms of what would have to take place for a transfer, if you will, for us to be able to utilize facilities that are, again, at this time, sitting on our sites, but operated by the city's 4th R program. That is a process that is still taking place at the moment. And our youth development department, as well as legal counsel, would then, of course, also explore any formal agreement that we would have to have with SAC Chinese. Again, like other organizations, they would complete a permit for making use of facilities that we own and would pay the fees associated to the use of those. So those are all processes that, as you can imagine, are all happening in real time as we are transitioning, if you will, at this point in time.
Well, I think what troubles me is that in an effort to meet a need in a short period of time, in order to meet the district to ensure that there are options for some of our parents, where these 4th R sites used to be, because 4th R could not ramp up in such a short period of time because the little staff they had, they're doing something else,
Correct.
serving kids.
Correct.
That we're trading off these, what I thought was going to be maybe 10 weeks of the remainder of the school year, that we're meeting that need for an entire year plus of a contract. And I don't want to pit these two programs. I'm sure they're both fantastic. I'm just focused on the partnerships and the trade-offs. And the public comment that we're hearing is save 4th R, but this is not a program that the district runs. So I want to encourage the parents to do the same advocacy to the city because it's their program. So if the city has told us they are not able to provide these services, then it needs to be more clear, because then that leaves the district with only one option, is trying to figure out how do you fill that gap. And if this is the way we have to fill it, we have to fill it. But I would like for you to follow up with the city and get more clarity, because it was my understanding that 4th R was going to be at not all the 4th R sites this summer, and they were ready to serve our students in the fall. I was working with 4th R staff to expand serving more students at 2 of the school sites in Trustee Area 2. So it's just not sitting well with me that this change is happening so quickly. I understand why, because as you know, one of the public commenters, I want to clarify that the request to fill this need for the remainder of this school year in terms of after-school care was driven by parents. So it's not something that the district sought. So this is parent-driven, just like the advocacy to restore and keep 4th R is parent-driven. So we're finding ourselves in this awkward situation. And again, at some point, there's a left turn happened, and I'm just trying to figure out how are we even talking about this. So I'd like for you to have that
Okay.
conversation with the city. I think we need to get more clarity as a district, what their plans are. And if they're in a position as a city that they're prepared to let go of fourth R, then they just need to tell us that, so that then we can move accordingly in meeting the needs of our families. So I just want to leave it at that, because this issue just gets me going.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out how to meet the needs of many of the parents in my area, as well as other school sites, and trying to maintain a program that has been very successful and very popular, and more parents want more fourth R, all the while trying to figure out where our partner, the district, is at. And then how do we find a solution that's more long-term?
Yeah.
If it means going with a different provider. So just that, and again, today was a good day, so I'm going to end on that thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Are there any other board member Member Rhodes?
Yes. Hold up. Okay, you can hear me. So, as I got the opportunity to sit, listen today, hear, reflect, really thankful and filled with joy about the experiences that I had today at the school sites. Visit 5 of my sites today. I think I walked around with superintendent a little bit as well. And yes, to see my own children walking into school and those type of things, and them smiling because I was there. It's a beautiful experience for your children to smile at you when you walk in. But I think that along with that, I also got to speak with staff and classified staff and teachers, food service people, and just see the real passion. Bus drivers, just see the real passion that they have for the work, for showing up for their students. And you know, I think I was talking to a custodian, and he was so happy that he got teary-eyed, and was like, "Oh wow, he's a custodian at the site," and he got teary-eyed about just seeing people come onto his campus. And so, with all that being said, I guess I'm sitting in a space of reflection, but then also knowing that we can continue to move in these positive directions. And as a board, I believe that we've been seeing positive progression, at least since that I've gotten on the board and we have our new board members here. I believe that we're moving in the direction that we want to move in, and it's very exciting. And then also a big Southside pride to the work that's going on Burbank with the vaccinations, 4,000 vaccination of the Johnson & Johnson one time, and that's really amazing as well, because then we don't have to track people coming back. They can get vaccinated and they go, and that's 4,000 people who are out into our public vaccinated. And that's a beautiful thing, especially for lower socioeconomic communities, which we also service. I think that for my colleagues, I would say if you guys would like to come out to the south side of the city and join us on Tuesday, kind of to help out, more all hands on deck would be very much appreciated. And if you can tell anybody else who wants to come out. But once again, generally happy with the day. We always have work to do. That's where we're at. We are always moving to move forward and do more and better. But I believe that our board here is going to continue to push forward for the good of our district, and understanding that along with everything we do, that we stay human-centered and people-forward with the work that we do. So I thank you guys for your time today, and Southside Pride, man. We'll see you on Tuesday.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Rhodes. Member Morosky?
Thank you. I know we're over. I'll be just very quick. I really appreciate the work that staff is doing on graduation. I'm really, really excited. So look forward to news on that soon. I just wanted to say real quickly on the fourth R issue, because I know a lot of my constituents have also reached out, Sutterville and Crocker in particular, that my own kids have gone to Sutterville fourth R every summer for the last few years. And I just want to give a shout out to Stacy and Christelle and all the staff there for being amazing, because they are. And, if fourth R was going to be there to serve our kids, that would be great. That would have been great. My impression is that they would not be serving our families, and that is why we're in this situation that we're in. If that's not true, or if the city, says we can do it, I that would be great. I think that's what folks were looking for. But we can't, as a district, make that decision for the city. So it is a city program, as Member Garcia said. And the bottom line for me is, as our families are getting called back to work or finding work, or before fall, that childcare need is real. And when you need childcare, there's nowhere else to go, right? We need to have an option for our families. So that was the most important thing for me. And my impression was that fourth R cannot meet that need for our families. But so I appreciate everyone's work on this and the collaboration that everyone has shown to get something in place to meet the needs of our families. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Member Borowski. Do we have any other board members that have anything to report? Nope. Okay.
Excuse me, President Pritchett.
Yes.
Terrence Gladney had commented earlier that he wanted to speak on
On
the
which item?
communications items. Yes, and he has his hand up. So I just wanted to see if you
I'm
would
sorry,
allow it, or
On which item, and?
for communications, because we don't post all of the communications items.
Okay.
On,
I thought he had already, okay, let's get him online. I thought he had already did a report on that, but let's get him online.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so to clarify, on the form, which I think could be improved if it was actually one page, like after I submit my request, there's also an option, do I want to confirm my responses? Then there's another button for me to say if I want an email copy of my responses. And those are 3 separate steps. So in the past, I think there's some confusion around whether I'm commenting or not is due to those multiple steps. So I'm aware of it now, and I continue to do that. But also on the agenda that's available on that form, only 11.1 and 11.2 were available, not 11.3 through 11.6. So that's why I made the comment
Got it.
earlier.
Understood.
Yeah, but I've heard a lot of requests for grace, and I think that obviously we have one of the most graceful populations of parents and families that continue to send their students to schools that are failing them. Historically, we talk about the achievement gap. We talk about ongoing special needs deficiencies, ongoing budget issues, whether you identify as a structural deficit or just a spending issue, whatever. There are repeated issues that have existed for years, but yet parents still send their kids to SCUSD. Part of that may be because they don't have other options, but as we have an influx of additional charter schools, they do. But parents stay loyal. Grace is given, obviously, by parents continue to send their students to our school district, but grace should only be expected if you come from a standpoint of humility. And it's not that long ago that there was a staff member, Mrs. Bieda, who assured us all, community, board, staff, that we are ready. And I cautioned against it because we had the lessons of distance learning on set where we had equipment that was ordered and not delivered. But she said, no, we're ready. We had a board meeting that had a glitch and went offline. She said, we are ready despite these issues. So when you hear the stories from people like myself who step forward to volunteer my time to make sure that my school site was ready, or you hear the frustrations from teachers, we can't explain those away as just things that happen. I work in IT for over 20 years, and yes, things do happen, but there are things you can prepare against. We don't get to explain those away on behalf of our teachers and students because you reassured them that we were ready. But the things that they needed at a basic level,
That was 2
such
minutes.
as technology and equipment being set up so that they could focus on teaching and learning, was not provided. So I'm just saying, if we operate from a position of privilege or confidence or arrogance even, then I don't know that we get to ask for grace if we don't humble ourselves enough to say that these things are possible and say that yes, things may happen before they happen. We can't let them happen and say, oh, we expected things to happen. We said we're
Thank you,
ready.
Mr. Gladney.
Mhm.
All right. Consent agenda, I believe we have a live comment.
Yes, we have one live comment from Allison French Toubeau.
Thank you. I actually don't have anything to add at this time.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Student preferential vote?
Yes on all items not subject to closed session.
Thank you. Superintendent roll call?
Member Pritchett,
Yes.
Member Morowski,
Aye.
Member Wu, Member Garcia,
Aye.
Member Villa,
Aye.
Member Rhodes,
Aye.
Member Phillips.
Aye. Fantastic. Item 13.0, business and financial information reports. We have received, we do have a live comment on this.
We do have one live comment from Allison French Toubeau.
Hi, Allie.
I'm sorry, I am busy, so I will pass. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
All right. With that, future board meetings, dates and locations will be here once again on the 22nd of April and May 6th, 2021. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry, Member Wu.
Close in memory of Manuel Manny Atlee. I'd like to close in memory of Emmanuel Manny Atlee, who was taken from us too soon a couple Fridays ago at a football game. He was on the sideline at Kennedy High School. I want to say that he's more than just a football player. He was also a much willing volunteer in the community, whether it be serving crab at the Maharlika Crab Feed, Lions Club, or helping out with my sister's house. Thank you, Manny. We close in your honor and memory.
Thank you, Member Wu. Coming from a football family myself, I know we are family, all of us together. Thank you. All right. With that, Member Wu, would you like to adjourn?
Yeah, and move to adjourn.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
I'll second. I'd just like to add, some of what I've heard from Kennedy students,
Sure,
which has just been,
absolutely.
I was in a Macy's parking lot when I heard the news, and it was just heartbreaking. And the text that I kept getting, I lost sleep over this because Manny was an incredible person. He was endlessly funny. People who met him once virtually in 2020 will always remember him. Always making people happy, and Sac City will feel his loss. And with that, I second Member Wu's motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Student Member Shake. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. We'll see you all in a couple weeks. Thank you all.